interoperability and transparency for industries such as financial services, e-health, education, e-government, public registries, managing intellectual property rights, and many others. The fintech industry has been an early adopter because of its early use case for Bitcoin. Blockchain technology has the potential to transform many other industries in a very efficient and automated way. Furthermore, from a regulatory and supervisory point of view, blockchain technologies could provide regulators with a powerful tool to ensure fraud, compliance costs, and facilitate auditing in several industries and services. I had to wear my glasses. In the context of the European digital single market, where the amount of online transactions and data is exploding, blockchain, with the support of international and European standards, will set the right conditions for the advent of an open, trustworthy, transparent, compliant, and authenticated transaction system in the European Union. The standardization communities are analyzing possible standardization gaps and identifying use cases which are relevant for EU regulations such as GDPR, electronic privacy, and electronic identity management, with the ultimate purpose of creating an open ecosystem of industrial solutions to be deployed by different sectors. The inclusion of international and European standards into future European and national legislations has proven in practice that technologies work together in a smooth and reliable way, providing economies of scale, promoting research and innovation, and keeping markets open. The Cyprus Organization for Standardization, through the National Standardization System, is supporting the development of European and international standards for ICT technologies. The National Bureau Committee for Blockchain is already established, engaging a number of national experts. It is worth noting that head of our national delegation, Ms. Christiana Aristidu, is actively involved in the work of the International Technical Standardization Committee ISO TC 307 for the adoption of standards of blockchain technologies. Concluding, I would like to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to His Excellency Mr. Philippos Hachizacharias, Deputy Minister for Research, Innovation and Digital Policy, not only for his presence at this important event, but also for being one of our main sponsors in hosting the International Standards Committee and supporting the blockchain week events in Cyprus. Special thanks also to our additional sponsors, KPMG, EY, MAPS Platis, and AMF Global Services. Finally, I would like to convey my thanks to Mr. Antonis Kolonidis, CEO of the University of Nicosia, and Dr. Theodoros Mourousis, Director, Manager of the Blockchain Technologies, for the sponsorship, support, and persistent efforts to convene and organize the hosting of this important international standardization committee in Cyprus, as well as contributing to today's event that will serve as a catalyst in the application of blockchain activities in Cyprus. I wish you all a fruitful day. Thank you.
Thank you, next, I would like to invite the Deputy Minister of Research, Innovation and Digital Policy, Mr. Philippos Hachizacharias.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dear friends, distinguished guests, allow me to start by congratulating the Cyprus Organization for Standardization, the Institute of the Future of the University of Nicosia, and the Cyprus BlockChain Technologies for co-organizing today's seminar on the role of standards in empowering the adoption of distributed ledger technologies, which is taking place under my office. The fourth industrial revolution, also known as Industry 4, is taking place around the globe and is characterized by the convergence of cutting-edge trends and technologies, including the Internet of Things, robotics, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence. Blockchain and distributed ledger technology, DLT, are groundbreaking innovations that are revolutionizing the way by enabling the decentralized recording of transactions, data, and other information. DLTs are more resilient to cybercrimes, fully transparent, accountable, largely automated, and more inclusive. Moreover, they increase organizational efficiency through decentralization and reduce expenses. For instance, IBM uses the technology in its Hyperledger Fabric, a scalable and modular platform utilized by various companies throughout different industries. Fujitsu has already developed a DLT that can improve transparency and prevent cybercrime and fraud in supply chains through improved data tracking. Distributed ledger technology can support many applications like decentralized marketplaces, smart contracts, and asset tokenization, just to name a few. Its implementation offers countless opportunities across numerous industries and new security models for the information gathered. As a result, it has the potential to be a major economic driver. The fact that with DLT we maintain tamper-proof transaction records enables the modernization of public administration through the development of new administrative techniques. As a result, the deployment of DLT has the potential to combat corruption, tax evasion, money laundering, and contribute to the detection of illegal transactions. In this regard, the European Blockchain Partnership was established on April 10, 2018, and its goals include facilitating the necessary actions in preventing and combating corruption, tax evasion, unlawful payments, money laundering, and the misappropriation of assets. It also includes the safeguards required to ensure consumer, investor, and environmental protection, legal certainty, and transparency. The Republic of Cyprus signed the European Blockchain Partnership on June 4, 2018, and on December 4, 2018, it signed the Joint Declaration of the Southern Mediterranean countries on distributed ledger technologies with 6 other European member states: Malta, France, Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. Both agreements aim to strengthen digital cooperation and position Southern Europe as a leader in cutting-edge technologies like DLT. Our country's strategy aims to build on previous initiatives and encourage improved comprehension and appropriate application of DLT and blockchain technology by Cyprus public and business sectors. Cyprus wants to build on the advancement made today on collaboration with other EU member states and top DLT blockchain professionals in order to lead innovation in the corresponding field. Currently, Europe holds the second most significant share in the blockchain technology market. As documented by the European Union Blockchain Observatory and Forum, the academic community in Cyprus has been active in the blockchain field. Cyprus belongs to the main hotspots for blockchain technology in Europe. It is no coincidence that the academic institutions of our country play a leading role in the preparation of studies in the European blockchain ecosystem. For instance, the extensive study of the European Observatory and Forum on Blockchain, published in 2020, was coordinated by the Institute for the Future of the University of Nicosia. According to the study, in terms of the maturity level of the business ecosystem, Cyprus is among the pioneer countries in Europe having implemented a national strategy to promote blockchain as early as 2019. A Cypriot university, the University of Nicosia, is leading the way globally, offering not only the first master's program in the field, but also a free introductory course in digital currencies, which has been taught to more than 40,000 students from 100 countries. Furthermore, the local industry is actively exploring applications of blockchain technology with pilot projects currently being implemented in the financial services and other industries. The government also supports blockchain through research and development programs. A sound example is the infrastructural development of the blockchain services infrastructure in BSI for the Republic of Cyprus as part of the EU-funded project CYS BSI that will be presented later today. The project was implemented in collaboration with the University of Nicosia, RTD Talos Limited, and Goldman Solutions and Services Limited. The activities of this project include the design and implementation of an e-diploma pilot use case that exploits the capabilities of the eBSI Hub developed in collaboration with EDEC, GU, and GUNet. In addition, we are proceeding to expand the existing use case of this European project to an integrated application that can be used at cross-border and national level by universities, professional organizations, with the end-to-end production plan for 2024. However, DLTs are not without downsides, which present challenges to widespread adoption. They are more complex than traditional solutions, more difficult to scale, and somewhat risky due to the lack of regulations. In most cases, the lack of proper regulation was driving companies to avoid the technology. The recent EU legislation, in particular, the regulation on the markets in crypto assets, will allow to better exploit the potential of cryptocurrencies and mitigate risks. In order to encourage the development and use of these technologies, European legislation aims to stimulate innovation while safeguarding financial stability, transparency, and market integrity, and protecting investors and consumers from potential risks. The European Union promotes innovation in blockchain technology and the development of the ecosystem of distributed ledger technologies in general, aspiring to consolidate Europe's position as a global leader in this rapidly developing technology. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, developing international and European standards for blockchain technology as a new field of technical activity will significantly benefit the economy by providing significant advantages to the private sector, to government transactions, and to the banking system. ISO TC 307 aims to meet the growing need for standardization in this area by providing internationally agreed ways of working with it to improve security, privacy, and facilitate worldwide use of the technology through better interoperability. This is especially relevant due to the number of small, medium enterprises across various sectors that are developing blockchain and distributed ledger technologies as a product. The development of blockchain and electronic ledger standards will assist this new emerging technology to be rolled out and deployed with greater clarity, certainty, and market confidence. It is important that interested stakeholders from Cyprus participate in standardization work In this context, they can be part in the creation of international and European standards on blockchain and DLT, support the economic and industry interests of Cyprus in the global standardization competitive environment, and equally important, improve their technical competences. Dear friends, the European Blockchain Observatory and Forum has highlighted our country as one of the top 3 hotspots for blockchain technology in Europe. This success is no accident. As part of the Cyprus National Strategy for Decentralized Technologies and Blockchain, which is being implemented from 2019, we seek to further invest in this effort, even after the end of the project. Therefore, the Deputy Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digital Policy will aim for the gradual transition of our national hub to a production environment while implementing relevant applications for the benefit of citizens. Thank you very much.
Now, I would like to invite to the podium Mr. Antonis Polemitis, Chief Executive Officer of the University of Nicosia, for his welcoming speech.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is nice to see a lot of friends, colleagues in the audience. Dear Minister, thank you for your kind remarks. And all our distinguished guests, thank you for being here. I'll be relatively short, but I'd like to give some context of what is at stake here. We started 10 years ago when approximately people thought Bitcoin was a tulip bubble for heroin dealers, plus or minus. And here we are in less than a decade talking about EU-wide legislation, EU-wide infrastructure, an asset class that is close to $1 trillion in market value, and a technology that has gone from effectively payments to now being able to support a variety of decentralized applications, including being the backbone for the metaverse. I think despite this, we do not realize, particularly in the EU, how much is at stake. Over the last 25 years, technology has been very successful, and we have a variety of excellent technological services. And this means, in practice, 10 firms in California. Everyone wonders when they're going to be in the metaverse. My dear friends, you're in the metaverse all day. And I say to people, I don't want to wear VR goggles. You don't have to wear VR goggles. How many hours do you spend looking at your computer screen or your telephone screen? And is it basically all your working hours? And when you're using Facebook, Twitter, Google, Microsoft Office, Google Apps, are you on someone's server in California or a server in Europe owned by a company in California? And have these companies become multi-trillion-dollar companies because they are choke points on the whole digital economy? And what's coming next? Well, we spent a lot of time in the last few months with ChatGPT. It's fantastic. And it's also in California. And I saw this very nice Apple presentation. Those goggles were very nice. And a decade ago, they the size of a pair of sunglasses, really inexpensive. And they're also in California. One of the things that is missing, I still think, at the highest levels in government, in policy of the EU, is that in practice, there is only one alternative to blockchain, and that is a database. And in practice, because we're talking about technology companies, it means a company, not a government. And in practice, it means a company in the United States, and in practice, it means a company in California. So I hear all the things about this. But what is the economic, sovereignty, and innovation risk to saying your whole digital economy, which is on path to be the whole economy very soon, sits in the database of companies in California? One of the things that made a big impression on me was when Donald Trump lost his Twitter account. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing is irrelevant to this discussion. One person who got very concerned was Chancellor Merkel. Because he said, wait, I use Facebook and Twitter to communicate to the German people. And if this private company can decide that the former president of the United States cannot send short messages to the American and local people, presumably it can wake up one day and cut Germany off from its citizens. And of course it can. The German government has no constitutional rights to use Twitter. Twitter is an American company with their private servers, and they could decide at their own choosing who gets to tweet. And as we have seen, that decision changes from time to time based on the CEO of Twitter. With all due respect, this is a very bad system. The first generation of internet applications came from universities. It was the pre-monetization era. They are all open protocols. Email is an open protocol. We have centralized email services, but if Google decides to not serve Cyprus, it's okay. We can run our own email service, it will take a little bit of work, and we're up and running. And because that's the case, you also don't pay a 30% tax for every business transaction you do through Gmail. Hold that thought for a second. We now have the second Web 2 series of technologies. All of those came venture capital backed, corporate backed from Silicon Valley. They all became services in order to be monetized. Twitter should have been the short messaging protocol of the English language world. Instead, it's a service. And the governance for Twitter is from the CEOs. That's the governance. There's no further governance, nor will there be further governance. You can't force Twitter to serve security. We'll just shut down the servers or something. Similarly, the App Store takes 30% of revenue of all apps. Does that sound sensible? It is a digital store with close to zero variable costs and has a 30% take rate. When Facebook, or Meta, whatever they call themselves today, announced Horizon, they said their take rate on digital revenue in their metaverse could reach 47.5%. The most socialist country in Europe does not have a 47.5% tax rate on revenue. On revenue. Contrast this to the public blockchain. You may know OpenSea. It's a marketplace for trading NFTs. Its marketplace take rate was about 2%. And there has been an endless assault on it by other marketplaces, driving the effective transaction fee to zero. Because in a competitive marketplace, that's what a transaction fee should be for moving around the digital object. Not 30%, 0.5%, 1%, 2%, 0%. Could be a loss leader to some other thing. And the reason you see this innovation in public blockchain, and you don't see this innovation in app stores or Facebook or Twitter or Google, is the latter have a proprietary database that they control access to. And if you're running an exchange for NFTs, all the data is out there on an equal basis for anyone to use. You can see who owns every NFT. You can write a smart contract to transfer an NFT. No one can stop you. So, what is my default state of the world? What do I think the problem/opportunity is for me? My default state of the world is the centralized services are going to become very, very good. In a decade, we will all have some form of smart glasses. They will be reading your biometrics, as the ones do now. They will be running machine learning algorithms to structure your visual space. And by default, it's going to be Apple and Google. If you had gone back in time 20 years ago and said, hey, the American Security Services said, we are on a pathway to put a microphone in everyone's pocket in Europe, and later to read their irises and check if they're nervous, see if they're sweaty a little bit, see if their irises have dilated, have a camera in their field of vision, see everything they see, hear everything they hear. In fact, overwrite their visual reality with what we want them to see. Do you think this is a good idea or not? The Stasi never had 1/1000th of this power. And the answer is not to say we're not going to use AI. The answer is not to say we're not going to use augmented reality, because it is inevitable. It is a one-way street. If we do not use them, we will become uncompetitive. I also believe the answer is not that we are somehow magically going to reverse 25 years of not building global tech champions, and we're going to build the next Google in Cyprus. I hope it happens, but I wouldn't count this. The Americans have a common market, a common language. It's easier for them to build big companies. What we can do, and what we can do by building on Nico, we should be, as Europe, pro-public blockchains. All of the default answers on corporate rent-seeking, on corporate abuse of power, on innovation taxes, go away if people's data is default their own. It's weird to say this because usually, and I've spent a lot of time now over the years through units with the regulatory state in Cyprus and Europe and what have you, and there's still a lot of fear. But I ask you, how much will the alternative cost us? The alternative is on absolute pathway to cost trillions per year leaked out of the European economy to the American economy. This is a big thing. Every single disaster in the crypto industry times 10 is still a 10 of that, right? And so we don't see the losses in the price we're paying now for the current system because we think it's normal. But it's not normal that if you're a Cypriot app developer and you make a nice app and you want to sell it as a service to someone, that Google should take 30% of your revenue. It is a highly abnormal situation. And so I think the work you're doing is very important. I think this field is very important. When we started in 2013, we said it's going to take 40 years. It's a base level foundational technology. These take time to get adopted into systems. A lot of progress has been made the last 10 years, but also a lot of progress has been made on the centralized side. So I think we have to accelerate. I actually think there's an opportunity right now because the Securities and Exchange Commission of the United States, I don't want to say they've lost their minds because I think they know exactly what they're doing. The head is extremely knowledgeable about cryptocurrency. It is a political play. There is a current moment in time where it is perceived to be in the political interest of the Democratic Party in the United States to be against cryptocurrency. And since they hold power, the SEC is being annoyed. And Andreessen and Horowitz made their first foreign office in London. Europe has a window of time, at least until the next election, to be welcoming to not just crypto companies from around the world, even crypto companies from the United States. I suspect we cannot count on this lasting. America tends never in the end to fall behind in the technological problem. But right now we have a window and we have an opportunity that is specifically relevant to it. Thank you all very much for your time.
So we'll continue with a welcome note from Dr. Theodoros Mourousis, Managing Director of Cyprus BlockChain Technologies. Mr. Mourousis.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear Minister, dear distinguished guests, I would like to thank you all for attending today's event. We are proudly sponsoring a Cyprus BlockChain Technology today's event, which is about standardization. Why standardization is very, very important in blockchain, because we are talking about a technology which has so many moving parts. There is like a very complex algorithm design, you have consensus mechanism, you have possibility protocols, network layers, you have to consider all these things in order to understand how to pretty much deploy such technology. And if we would like this technology to be mainstream, like the internet is, we have to come up with the standards. There is like a survey by Deloitte, I think, that said there are more than 250 different blockchain frameworks. If we don't work together to understand how to standardize this technology, we will end up different institutions, different banks, different governments, having different protocols, having different blockchain frameworks, which means that they will be useless. They will not be interoperable, and the way to connect them will be very, very difficult. That's why standardization is very, very important, and I'm sure that you will enjoy today's seminar. Now, at Cyprus BlockChain Technologies, we are the first think tank in Cyprus, focusing primarily on technology, dating back to 2017. We started under the encouragement of UCL, Center of Blockchain Technologies, who is the biggest research center in the world nowadays. And starting with a few members, like initially we had the support of UCL, the Learning Bank, and Bank of Cyprus. We ended up having like more than 25 members across all the sectors in Cyprus, supporting our initiatives and helping the center in order to do these events as we have today, helping in research. We've been working closely with the government for performing the national blockchain strategy, which is post at the moment, waiting the MIGA, and then maybe just revise it in a better way. And we have been also very, very likely involved in the ISO TC 307. Christiana is here from the first members of our consortium, working closely with like the different teams in order to come up with the standards. And we have been also very active with the technical committees of the European Blockchain Partnership in order to come up with like the most optimized design in regards to blockchain. So this is about the Cyprus BlockChain Technologies, and very quick, I hope that you enjoyed the
So I now open today's event for presentations, and I want to invite Mr. Joseph Caris for a short presentation on national standardization system in ICT blockchain.
Hi all, I welcome you in today's seminar. I'm Joseph Caris. Most of you know me. Happy to see you again in our events. On behalf of Cyprus Organization for Standardization, I will give a very brief introduction of our national standards body, and then we will give a very brief overview of the international and European technical bodies that they are related to blockchain standardization. Allow me to say that our national standards body in Cyprus is being independent since January 2005, with the only shareholder, the Minister of Finance, and we are operating under private law. CYS, the Cyprus Standardization Body, is a full member of the three European standards organizations, CENS and Legacy, and we are also full members of the three national standards organizations, ISO, IC, and ITU. And allow me to say that all of these standards organizations, they all developing standards related to the emerging technologies and especially in blockchain technology. Our mission of our national standard body is to effectively safeguard our national interests in the European international standardization arena, and also, of course, the promotion of international European standards in order to strengthen the competitiveness of Cypriot companies and organizations. Our main activities in CYS, we manage the standardization system in Cyprus. We are organizing today seminars and lectures. We are also organizing training seminars of all the fields and topics of the industry. We are organizing meetings with within the industry, explaining them the standardization and we are trying to get engaged into standardization activities. And of course, we are preparing articles and publications in the mass media. This is our sectors inside our organization. As you can see, we have all kinds of sectors that, in order to support the Cyprus industry, from mechanical, electrotechnical, chemical, civil engineer, services and finance, and of course, information communication technology sector, where I am responsible with my colleague Stefanos. This is basically how we preserve our national standardization system. We have what we call the national mirror committees. Here, experts from the industry have the chance to be included inside national mirror committees in order to develop their opinion and their commenting on draft European international draft standards, which later on these draft standards will be finalized and published officially as finalized European international standards. Also, we have the national technical committees, where their role is to develop national standards, and this actually happens when there is demand from the industry or professional associations. And also, we have the commitment of our local national technical experts who are participating actively in the European international technical committees, where the hard work is being done with the drafting and developing of European international standards. So at this moment, in our national standard body, we have actively in the national mirror committees on subjects like telecommunication technologies, of course, blockchain, intelligent transport systems, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity and data protection, and of course, everyone in the room, if you are interested to be part of the national mirror committees, you can contact with us and we'll explain you the methods and how actually they work. As I told you, we have our national technical experts that we are participating in the European international standardization committees. Of course, we are participating on blockchain with our national head of delegation, which is here with us today. Information security and cybersecurity, financial services, artificial intelligence, and imaging technology. At this moment, I want to call on the floor Scott Farrar, the future chairman of ISO TC 307, and he will make a small introduction and description of this international committee. But we are happy to have you in Cyprus for your meetings.
Thanks, Joseph. And thank you, distinguished guests. I'm from Australia, so you're all distinguished guests from my perspective, every single one of you. It's actually a privilege to be on the other side of the world and talking to such clever people. Thank you for providing ISO TC 307, blockchain and DLT technologies to your seminar. As Joseph said, I'm the new acting chair, and I am super passionate about this technology and the opportunities it provides. I'm not super passionate because I'm a technologist or a software engineer or any kind of scientist. I'm passionate because I'm not any of those things. In fact, I'm a lawyer. I've worked for the last 20 years on building financial systems here, all around the world, and for the last 10 in doing that with this technology. Why am I passionate about it? Because of people. And the first thing is it's for people. It creates this incredible ability for real people, ordinary people, to have confidence in engaging with a digital economy, which to many ordinary people is utterly terrifying, but totally necessary. And that is an incredibly powerful thing to do, because it doesn't matter where those people come from. It's not something limited to people in Australia, California, Cyprus, anywhere. It crosses borders. And also, just as importantly, it is by people. It is people that are working on this. And those people are also from everywhere. So we have this connection across the world in working with something that helps all of us and involves all of us. And that is truly wonderful. So, and just part of that is we are an international body of experts. We have over 250 members, including and especially experts from Cyprus. And I'm looking at you, Christian. In fact, we were founded 7 years ago, and we are proud of publishing 11 new international standards to help business, governments, academia, and anyone that didn't fall into those categories as to how you use this technology for your products and services that help people. You can see up there the different working groups we have. I don't propose to go through those, but basically in a non-technical sense, a poor, silly lawyer sense, these are creating a common language for the sharing of knowledge across borders to help all the people that we want to help. So you will fortunately hear from cleverer people than me from the ISO committee. We have 3 experts that will be talking to you and on these standards and how they can help inform your initiatives. The last thing I wanted to mention to anyone who thinks this is pretty cool and they'd like to get involved and they're not, don't let anything hold you back. If an Australian lawyer can get involved and talk to you about it on the other side of the planet, it must be pretty easy for you to give it a go as well. So please get involved in this because we need lots of people to design things that help people, and my colleagues in the committee will explain to you what this all means and how you can have that effect. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Scott. Nice words. I have a few slides more. These are some of the published standards that the ISO committee already published. I will just do my presentation and you'll have the chance to see them later on. Also, some ongoing work on smart contracts, NFTs, and identification on decentralized identities. Also, I want to inform you that there is also a European Technical Committee under CEN and CENELEC. Is the JTC19, which actually develops standards for blockchain to cover aspects like organizational frameworks and methodologies using blockchain and including the IT management systems, and also for the processes and products evaluation schemes and distributed ledger guidelines. The European Committee for Blockchain is focusing more on the legislative aspects. So the standards that will be developed in this European Committee will support legislations and regulations of EU like GDPR, EIDAS, NIS, Cybersecurity Act, the data regulation that is on now is ready, and many other regulations in the European Union. Also, this committee has 2 working groups already established: decentralized identity management and working with 2 environmental sustainability. These are some early drafts that the committee is working. And lastly, under ETSI, the European Telecommunication Standards Institute, there is another committee. It's called ETSI Industry Specific Group for distributed ledgers. Also, this committee is producing group reports and specifications for the operation of permission distributed ledgers, including interfaces, APIs, and protocols, and also reports regarding the proof of concept frameworks for those businesses and organizations that we are using blockchain. And of course, many reports for business use cases. These are some of the latest reports that were published by the committee. and also some interesting ongoing work for identity and task management, for PDLs, working on wireless consensus networks, and how PDL works under EIDAS applicability. So that's the end of the presentation. I must last say that our organization, the National Standards Body, will strengthen the relationships with the local blockchain community in order to observe better the standardization in European international levels, and also to support with standards, local regulations, and further implementations of blockchain inside the industry. Thank you very much.
So next, please allow me to invite Ms. Cristiana Aristidu, Head of National Delegation of CYS in ISO TC 307, to present us an overview of the latest EU regulatory developments on DLTs.
Hello, I fully endorse Scott's views as a lawyer. So for the same reasons, I am involved in this technology, Scott. So thank you. So hello everyone. Yeah, okay. I will address those who are here. So first of all, Director General of the Cyprus Standardization Organization for Standardization. Chairman, current, Craig, and they are maybe watching online, as you know, this event is broadcasted online. Future chairman, Scott, and Amy, of course, and the crew, the rest of the crew. Dear ISO TC 307 members, expert colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to stand before you here today, the esteemed colleagues of the International Standardization Organization and distinguished guests and speakers to discuss the incredible developments and prospects of DLT and the role of standards proposed. I must confess, it fills me with pride to witness the dynamic beginning of the blockchain week right here in Cyprus these last few days. Our island serves as a perfect backdrop for such an occasion, and it is with great pleasure that I welcome my long-standing colleagues from my homeland. Please allow me to extend my appreciation and gratitude to the incredible efforts of the Cyprus Organization, or Cyprus Organization for Standardization, the University of Nicosia, and the Cyprus BlockChain Technologies for organizing this event, this extraordinary event. I cannot, of course, overlook the invaluable support from the Deputy Ministry of Innovation, which has graciously placed this event under its auspices. So, as head of the national delegation of the Cyprus Organization for Standardization to the ISO TC 307 blockchain committee, together with the ISO colleagues, many of whom are here with us today, we have been pushing hard for standardization in the field of DLTs. Effective blockchain standards play a pivotal role in driving widespread adoption of the technology, fostering interoperability, bolstering security, and inspiring trust. The remarkable efforts undertaken by ISO in blockchain standardization are bound to elevate the levels of blockchain adoption, enhance technical confidence in this technology, streamline regulatory frameworks, and empower the adoption of robust rules and regulatory technical standards, particularly on digital resilience. I'm grateful that this event provides an excellent platform to delve into the adoption of standards in DLT, hosting leading experts, voices, industry professionals, and representatives from the ISO as well as from the private sectors, of course, who are bringing their unique perspectives to the table. So today I will speak from my position as a lawyer, in fact, and I've chosen to do this because I want, of course, I want to inform all of you about the latest regulatory developments, I would say, regulatory related to DLT's developments, but also because I want to share what happens, what is currently the framework in the EU for my colleagues who come from other places in the world. So it would be good for my colleagues to know more about the regulations in Europe. So the EU recently endorsed the Market Simplified Regulation, that is MiCA, marking a significant milestone in the EU's efforts to regulate crypto assets. Published in the EU official journal on the 9th of June, like last week, MiCA represents a comprehensive framework for the supervision and regulation of crypto assets operating on DLTs. MiCA will apply from December 24, save for some provisions applying from the 30th of June 24. These provisions that will come up later relate to Titles 3 and 5 on the framework for e-money tokens and asset reference tokens. While MiCA is the first of its kind in the EU, it is important to note that previous attempts were made to regulate crypto assets, especially in response to concerns raised by international organizations like the Financial Action Task Force regarding money laundering. As a result, the EU introduced the 5th AML directive, which classified providers of limited crypto services as obliged entities for AML purposes, requiring proper authorization and compliance with all relevant AML regulations and checks. The 5th AML directive broadly covered payment tokens. For security tokens, competent EU authorities like ESMA, like the European Banking Authority, issued guidance that any token resembling conventional securities, financial instruments, and e-money would be brought within the conventional financial and payment service regulatory framework. MiCA seeks to bring all crypto assets currently not regulated within regulatory limits. MiCA regulates specific categories of crypto assets: asset reference tokens, ARTs, e-money tokens, EMTs, and other. There's a third category, other crypto assets. If we were to use the conventional categorization of security, utility, and payment tokens, MiCA would regulate utility and payment tokens, excluding tokens that qualify as funds, unless they meet the definition of e-money tokens, and of course, excluding financial instruments, as I said before, while the conventional financial services laws would regulate security tokens. In addition to this classification, MiCA acknowledges the category of stable coins. You know, stable coins, crypto assets whose value is pegged to or backed by a currency or any other assets. bringing stablecoins within scope as asset reference and e-money tokens. NFTs are beyond scope, even though some exceptions do apply, and we need to be very careful with this. MiCA regulates issuers and providers of services related to crypto assets, hence crypto or virtual, whatever we call them, crypto or virtual asset service providers currently covered by the 5th AML directive will be comprehensively regulated beyond the limited scope of AML under MiCA. It is obvious that MiCA is poised to transform the regulatory framework, the regulatory landscape around today on crypto assets and crypto asset service providers. So the EU AML package. The EU is also seeking to develop its AML framework through its EU AML package. This AML package comprises of legislative proposals aiming to strengthen the EU rules on AML and combating financing of terrorism. For our purposes, I note the proposal for a regulation on the prevention of the use of the financial system for the purposes of money laundering and terrorist financing, the so-called EU Single Rule Book regulation. The new AML regulation will contain provisions on conducting due diligence on customers, transparency of beneficial owners, and the use of anonymous instruments such as crypto assets and new entities such as crowdfunding platforms. As a regulation, it is expected to bring a greater degree of harmonization, expanding on the foundations laid by the 5th AML. Directive crypto assets are a key point within the new EU AML package. So the forthcoming AML regulation will regulate crypto asset service providers in a comprehensive manner, aligning with the overarching framework established by MiCA. Another part of the AML package of our concern, talking about DLTs, is the proposal for the recast of the regulation on information accompanying transfers, expanding traceability requirements to crypto assets. This is the TFR. This is the travel rule, actually, the travel rule regulation. This regulation was published in the EU official journal last week, 9th of June 23, and will apply from the 30th of November 24. Notably, the wire transfer rule, an existing regulation in the payment industry, mandates traceability for wire payments. The principle will now be extended to include transfers involving crypto assets, necessitating the transmission of relevant information along with the transfer regarding the sender, the receiver, their respective account, which is what? The wallet, the digital wallet, and the identification of the transaction. The objective behind this development is to enhance transparency, establish consistent requirements, and create a level playing field for both wire and crypto asset transfers. As I mentioned previously, security tokens that fall within the scope of conventional transferable securities and financial instruments are subject to regulation under existing financial laws. However, acknowledging the unique aspects of DLT and the challenges it poses for compliance with trading and settlement requirements for financial instruments under MiFID II, the EU introduced in June 22 the DLT pilot regime applying from March 23. Operating under a sandbox-like framework, the DLT regime grants certain exemptions for a specified period to market infrastructures, multilateral trading facilities, MTFs, and central securities depositories, CSDs, from specific requirements outlined in MiFID II, the Central Securities Depositories Regulation, and the Settlement Finality Directive for financial instruments based on DLT. These exemptions are granted when these entities offer suitable mitigating measures that address the unique attributes of DLTs. The DLT pilot regime defines the new categories of participants as DLT multi-trading facilities, DLT settlement systems, and DLT trading and settlement systems as market infrastructures operating on DLT. Essentially, the DLT pilot regime opens the way for the secondary trading of digital assets operating on DLT that qualify as financial instruments. The European Commission has also launched a regulatory sandbox initiative for innovative use cases on DLT. The EU blockchain sandbox, operating from 2023 to 2026, aims to trigger regulatory dialogues for new DLT use cases and solutions, welcoming 20 projects annually. The sandbox will enable regulators to understand the technology's implications, risks, and challenges before formulating comprehensive rules, guidelines, and regulatory frameworks. Initiatives like the EU blockchain sandbox and the sandbox-like approach in the DLT pilot regime encourage collaboration and engagement between regulators, industry stakeholders, the technology providers, facilitating knowledge sharing, industry feedback, and cooperation to address technical, legal, and operational aspects related to DLT adoption. So, closing remarks. The EU regulatory developments in blockchain underscore the EU's commitment to encouraging innovation and blockchain adoption. These advancements are designed to strike a balance between promoting innovation and safeguarding the interests of consumers and investors. The EU recognizes the importance of protecting financial stability and resilience. Furthermore, these regulatory initiatives aim to enhance legal certainty, providing a solid framework for businesses operating in the blockchain space. Thank you very much.
So next, Dr. Elias Yosif, representing the Institute of the Future of University of Nicosia, will give us a presentation on this development of blockchain infrastructure in Cyprus and DSI.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to participate in this seminar under the auspices of the Honorable Minister of Research, Innovation, and Policy. Also, I would like to thank the organizers, the Cyprus Organization, Standardization, University of Nicosia, Cyprus BlockChain Technologies. So, briefly, I'll provide an overview of the DSI initiative, including its specific implementation in Cyprus. So the project started in May 2021. The duration was 2 years. In addition to the Ministry of Research, Innovation, and Digital Policy, the consulting institute, Carlos, Goldman, and us, the University of Nicosia. It was accompanied by the European Union under the Connecting Europe Facility. Now, we transition to a digital society, starting from local digital transformations up to like the first steps towards metaverses. It's one of the main challenges for the European Union, one of the main challenges for the European Union. In this vision, okay, it's not just the freedom. This vision requires tools. In blockchain, it's one of those tools. One. Because at the high level, blockchain, we know that enables transparency, enables trust. And in this context, more possible, such as open standards. Right? The European Union has recognized this value, and EBSI is the technological vehicle in life helping us to move towards this. Specifically, EBSI can be regarded as a common blockchain infrastructure that can accelerate this digital transformation. This transformation is of special importance for governmental public services. There we see numerous and different stakeholders being involved. And this poses a lot of challenging questions like how governments trust digital data, how we can share digital documents in a way, in a trusted way. Addressing these questions is not easy. Actually, we need, as I was saying, the right tools for achieving. And blockchain is part of the answer. EBSI is part of the technology to answer to those questions. Please notice in this second diagram where the user is being positioned at the very center. Today's we are using quite old design of the internet. Internet was not designed around users. Internet was designed having machines. Fortunately, this old design can be gradually improved. Transparency, programmable expressiveness of smart contracts using an intelligent kind of blockchains can help us towards this redesign. The European Union has launched several initiatives for supporting digital solutions in the context of digital transformations, and EBSI is going to support public administrations, business, and citizens. And the foundation of poverty on which this is incredibly inspired. So we can, as a summary, say that EBSI is a common shared infrastructure, secure infrastructure, and the mission is to develop cross-border services which are trustworthy and accessible by all. The main target is European citizens. So the goal is to serve the public good. So this and many good design principles and software engineering practices have been adopted, closely related to committees. Open source tools, data compatibility, standards, compliance with EU regulations. So we see all those important concepts being converged under EBSI. EBSI can be utilized in numerous use cases like software entities, diplomas, benefit traceability, data sharing. The Cyprus EBSI pilot was focused on the 7 use cases, that is the verification of diplomas, and of course other use cases like outsourcing, etc., and the supplement. Now let's have a look at some specific technical information. So as said, EBSI can be thought as a public permission network. The network nodes are EU member states. They are managed by the European Commission. In Cyprus constitutes an EBSI node supporting all required functionalities for developing and deploying and target use cases. So consortium. We are proud to be members of this special ecosystem by providing resources, by supporting its decentralization. When we apply our PBSI, we see technology side. It's not only, we see specific hardware machinery, we see various software, including a suite of low-level systems and tools up to chain-specific layers. And end user, including and developers, are concerned more with application-specific information. In other words, very often we are seeing only the API, the upper layers. And that's a good thing. Why? Because it hides the unnecessary complexity in the complex machinery. And this is also the case, this is very good practice for PPSI. But underneath we have core services, chain, and storage layers, and infrastructure. Regarding the technical capabilities of PPSI, PPSI makes to end developers a set of APIs available in the public internet. This allows to those users, those developers, to interface with PPSI standards of public. That is to retrieve the information from the blockchain layer, to interact with it. However, smart contracts in PPSI are controlled. They cannot be deployed by anyone. Smart contracts respond and also make PPSI's APIs and performing applications. The next phase for PPSI is quality. Others of aspects for high-level innovation, including critical aspects like scalability, consensus, energy efficiency, interoperability. The next phase also includes the regulatory sandbox. The sandbox is a European framework needs to increase the legal certainty for innovative blockchain solutions. Plans, as mentioned from 2023-2026, and will annually support, as I mentioned, a number of projects, and part of those projects build on PPSI. Currently, PPSI can be utilized for various cases, focusing on academic verification, like identity verification, as well as other related verification cases like social security, up-to-date blockchain technologies, including PBSI, are in the sense of advancing the boundaries of scientific knowledge and the application of this knowledge. So, what we see today is only the beginning. Of course, nothing is certain, meaning that a lot of experiments, a lot of pilots must be conducted. We need subjects. But the outcome of this effort will be visible in what the future holds for us and the new generations of citizens. Citizens who do not blindly trust, but instead they intelligent. Citizens who love and respect both the physical environments as well as the metaverses. Citizens who equipped with substantial knowledge, with like a sense of honor for being digital global citizens. And this is the
Thank you. Next, Ms. Marjolaine Goyce, representing Bird and Bird, will connect online with us to give us a presentation on the European regulatory blockchain sandbox. Yes, Ms. Marjorie, can you share with us your presentation? Yes, thank you.
Yes. And can you hear me well?
Yes, yes, of course.
Yeah. And am I in slideshow mode? No, sorry for the question.
Yes, you are in slide mode.
Okay, apologies for the logistics. It's fantastic, and thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm so terribly sorry that I'm not with you in the room today, because that was definitely the purpose, and I would have loved to meet you all, because this is so much at the core of what I'm doing on a daily basis, actually, right now. My name is Marjolein Geus. I'm leading the project, the European Blockchain Sandbox project, at the initiative of the European Commission. Thank you very much, I must say, also to not only the organization, but also to Christiana and also Elias for the introduction and mentioning already the sandbox in their presentations, which were really spot on and allows me to build on that. So this presentation actually to take somewhat of a more deep dive into the European Blockchain Sandbox project and what we are trying to achieve in that project. So the sandbox, what are we trying to achieve? And that was already presented very well by Christiana. It's an initiative of the European Commission setting up or establishing a pan-European framework for regulatory dialogue with the ultimate goal of increasing legal certainty for innovative blockchain technology solutions. That is quite a task on an EU-wide and actually EEA-wide basis. What we are doing in the sandbox is fostering the regulatory dialogue between blockchain innovators on one hand and national and European regulators on the other hand. That works two ways. On the one hand, we are aiming at providing blockchain innovators with a better understanding of regulatory frameworks, and on the other hand, also raising awareness amongst regulators and public authorities, and also, of course, blockchain innovators, to better understand potential regulatory issues, but also possible solutions. That will be private and secure dialogues, but the end result should be the publication of best practices across all sectors for the benefit of the wider community. And those best practices reports will be published by the European Commission. 3 in a row, because there are 3 cohorts. I'll come to that a little later. What areas are we covering in the European blockchain sandbox? And that is beyond the regulation in the financial services sector. First of all, the use cases that can participate in the blockchain sandbox are covering a wide range of companies, private companies, being both micro size, small size, and other companies, and also public entities. The sandbox is open for use cases across all sectors and all EU EEA regions. The sandbox is covering a wide range of regulatory areas. Actually, all regulatory areas that could be relevant can be part of the dialogue in the sandbox. We make a distinction on one hand, generic regulatory areas that apply across industry sectors such as data protection, digital identity regulation, cybersecurity regulation, consumer protection, competition law, data regulation, etc. On the other hand, we are looking at sector-specific regulatory areas that are focusing on certain industry sectors, like, for instance, the financial services sectors and the MiCA regulation, also the DLT pilot regulation are good examples there, I think. but we are also focusing on the health sector, and environment, automotive and mobility, energy, of course, very, very important, and also media, telecoms, etc. There's an important difference with the kind of sandbox type of setup under the DLT pilot regulation, that is that this sandbox will not provide a derogation from existing regulatory requirements. So this is really about understanding the regulatory requirements, discussing the interpretation, seeing where the issues are, where the solutions could be, but it's not about a framework for derogation of those regulations. Closer look at the project. I think it was already mentioned, but the project is running for 3 years, and we have in 2023, 2024, and 2025, we have a cohort of 20 use cases that are matched with relevant national and EU regulators to have a dialogue in a safe and confidential environment on the most prominent and novel regulatory issues. Those dialogues between individual use case owners on the one hand and the regulators, national and EU on the other hand, are secure and confidential, so they are not communicated externally. However, the conclusions and the findings, the lessons learned during those dialogues will be part of the best practices report, and in such a way will be available to the wider community. The use cases will be selected across sectors and include companies of all sizes and public entities, all across the EU, EEA. I'll discuss a little later that there's also room for consortium partners outside the EEA, but the real focus is the EEA. I already mentioned the best practices report, basically covering the broad range of legal areas and regulatory topics, and there's also another distinction. In fact, in that regulation, we now see the development of really DLT-focused regulations. That's in itself, it's a novelty. That I think the DLT pilot regime was the first there. And DCA is, of course, also very important, but apart from that, we are discussing regulations and legal legislation that was never designed for distributed ledger technologies, but still is relevant for distributed ledger technologies. So that is basically the reason why this is such an important project across all regulatory areas. A quick look at the setup of the consortium that is running the project at the initiative of the European Commission. So Bird & Bird is leading the consortium, but we never would be able to do that on our own. In the consortium, we have blockchain experts from WP Node who have a thorough understanding of blockchain applications across all industry sectors. We are working closely together with our consulting arm, Oxygy, for the project management. Bird & Bird is taking care of the legal and regulatory elements and also coordinating the dialogues, but there we need on board the national regulatory specialists across the EU, EEA countries. So there's all the flags of all the countries there, and depending, of course, on the selection of use cases for the sandbox, and they will be involved in the dialogues. There's a website, Spinbox helped design that, and then last but by no means least, we have a distinguished panel of academic blockchain experts, Roman Beck, Sudha Luca, and Walter Blocher, all very familiar. So Roman is on the program, and Sudha the organization, and Walter is so very interested, but this distinguished panel of academic experts is overseeing, in particular, the selection of the use cases, which need to be transparent and independent and non-discriminatory, And the panel of independent experts is also in charge of granting the award for the most innovative regulator that is taking place on a yearly basis. So also in 2023, 2024, and 2025. Then at the beginning of the project, we thought, well, we better specify the benefits for the use case owners to actually make them aware of the project and keen to apply. So we have explained a couple of benefits of participating in the sandbox for the use case owners. First, there is the possibility to obtain specialist legal and regulatory advice across all the relevant areas. Very important to be heard for use case owners. There's often regulatory and legal questions. They like to discuss it with regulators, but feel a bit reluctant because disclosing confidential information also, there's always the possibility that information will be used in some kind of proceeding, so they need a safe and secure environment, and this is the way to be heard and to actually contribute to the discussion where the issues are and where the possible solutions are. Because the dialogues are organized in a safe and secure and confidential way, the dialogues will also be constructive, open, the other side, of course, that what is being discussed cannot be used outside the sandbox, but it will provide very helpful and needed insights in how the regulation is working. And of course, there is an important aspect in creating and expanding the network, getting to know the other use case owners and also the regulators. I must say that we went through the applications for the first cohort, and that was a fantastic success. It felt like there was so much enthusiasm amongst use case owners for the project, for being able to participate in the dialogues. There, I think we already now can conclude that this really provides in a need that is felt widely across the blockchain community. Of course, we also need the regulators and supervisory authorities on board in this project, because you cannot have a dialogue with only the use case owners. So at the same time, we reached out to the regulators in EU, EEA-wide webinars for the regulators to inform them about the project, where the possibilities for them are, and where we think that the advantages for regulators are in the project. To name a few, for regulators, it is also often they come across issues and on a national level, thinking, well, what should we do with this? What would others think about it? This is the framework and the setting to have a discussion about such issues and discuss those also across borders with other EU and EEA regulators. It's also important to be able to exchange experiences and ideas with innovators to understand the more technical aspects of innovative solutions, and to discuss in an open and constructive way how that could impact the application, the interpretation of the regulations. We also had questions from regulators saying, well, do you have blockchain experts to help us where needed? And there we benefit from the fact that we have these blockchain experts in the consortium who could step in if needed there. There is also an option for regulators to actually support applications for the sandbox. The first cohort will also be the case for the second and third cohort. And if regulators would think, well, this use case is really interesting from a regulatory perspective, and there are clear issues that we would like to discuss. So that is a possibility. Also for regulators, it is beneficial to expand the network and to be seen as part of this big EU-wide project, and to contribute, of course, to the development of best practices that will then be reflected in the best practices report. And of course, there is then the ultimate chance to be awarded the most innovative regulator of the year. But that is only for the end of this year. I already touched upon who can apply. This is all size companies and public entities based in the EEA with a validated proof of concept. So it's not only about theoretical possible use cases. There really needs to be some maturity and relevance in actual life. EEA-based companies can apply, can also operate in a consortium with non-EEA companies, but the beneficiary project should be under the lead of an EEA-based company. So in theory, it's also possible that there will be an applicant outside the EEA, but then still the project itself needs to be under the lead of an EEA-based company. Elias already touched upon EPSI. EPSI is also an important element in the project. EPSI use cases are qualified to participate in the regulatory dialogues and actually do not have to go through the selection process. They are qualified as a public entity use case. In this first cohort, we will actually have one EPSI use case that will participate. So we are very happy with that because it's a very interesting and promising use case. Perhaps I should say already now that in order to have a balance across use cases and the different sizes of companies, on the one hand, the public entities, on the other hand, we work with 4 different lots. We have a lot for micro enterprises, a lot for small enterprises, a lot for medium-sized or larger enterprises, and a lot for public entities. Each lot has 5 places, and if there is not enough application for one lot, then that will be filled by one of the non-participant of the other lots. EPSI takes one of the places in the public entity lot. Looking at the selection process, because the application term for the first cohort ended on the 14th of April of this year, and there are clearly enough applications, so we are going through the selection process as we speak. To look a bit at the process, so the use cases that have applied are evaluated on the basis of eligibility criteria, award criteria, and there's also 2 tiebreakers that are being used. One tiebreaker is the regulator support. That is part of the application, and there's equal scores that the use case with regulator support will be selected, and there is also a regional uniqueness tiebreaker, meaning that if one of the 5 regions in the EU is underrepresented, then we could use a spare place for to fill that gap. The panel of academic experts oversees the selection process. Very important to make sure that it's independent, transparent, and non-discriminatory. The regulators do not have to go through a selection process. EU and national regulators are invited to express their interest, or we are approaching them based on the selection of use cases for the first cohort to make sure that we have a balanced mix of regulators and dialogues across regions and across industry sectors, and of course also relevant for the use cases. And so that is of course, it's an important element, a crucial element, and we are going through that process also right now, more or less in parallel. And then the FC use case, one FC use case in the first cohort. Looking at the selection criteria, validate proof of concept is an eligibility criteria, so that is needed. But all the eligible use cases and applications are then scored against criteria. First, criterion is the business case maturity. The second award criterion is the legal and regulatory relevance, not only in a specific industry sector, in a specific country, but we are looking in particular at the use case that incur novel regulatory issues across industry sectors or across the EU. And the third important award criterion is the contribution to the EU policy priorities. I already mentioned the 4 lots and tiebreakers as well as, of course, the scoring formula that is being applied, and that is how the methodology works. Then, where are we in the project for the first cohort? The application term for the first cohort ended on the 14th of April of this year. We are currently in the selection of the use case for the first cohort, making really good progress there. The dialogues for the individual use cases will start in the third quarter of this year. We may need a month or so in the fourth quarter of this year, and then there will be the publication of the best practices reports or report by the end of this year. So that will probably be in November or December, and that will also be the moment when the most innovative regulator award will be handed out. That is the first cohort, and according to the planning, we will then start in the first quarter of 2024 with the application process for the second cohort, with basically the same sequence, and then in 2025 we will move on with the third cohort. And it really makes a lot of sense to have these 3 cohorts, because going through a cohort itself is also a learning experience, and will lead to further questions that can then be addressed in the next cohort. But there is also pending proposals for regulation that is becoming very relevant. For instance, looking at the Data Act and the Artificial Intelligence Act, those will be important developments that probably will become relevant in the second or third cohort when the proposals have been adopted. And apart from that, there's so many topics to discuss that in fact we just need 3 times 20 use cases to be able to really look at the different regulatory areas and topics in a proper way. Almost at the end of the presentation, we have a website, www.blockchain-sandbox.eu. There is a lot of information on that website, and there's also the rules of the game are being published, so the application terms. Also the sandbox protocol is published. As an extensive FAQ section that was already there, but that was further expanded during the application term for the first cohort. We had a lot of questions from potential applicants that were answered on the website, and I think those are also very helpful to understand the project and perhaps get an answer to questions that do not immediately become apparent from a presentation like this. I think That is it. So thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to answering questions, but so I'll stay on the line. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I would like to invite Mr. Roman Beck, convener of Working Group 5 of ISO TC 307 for his presentation, Guidelines for Blockchain and DLT Governance.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here today, and thank you for the fantastic event, and thank you also for the fantastic audience. Many of you have been here for the whole week working on the plenary week, but I'm also seeing there's interest from outside. That is always great. When sitting in the audience and you're hearing kind of people talking about FC and talking about the regulatory sandbox, then it's a bit weird for me because kind of I'm also the representative of Denmark, of the Kingdom of Denmark. At FC, at the European Blockchain Partnership. So sometimes I'm sitting on the receiving end, and sometimes I'm one of the providers of writing reports and so on. So in that way, kind of, I think what is important in the context also of standards to mention is that kind of good standards and good regulation combined gives you good compliance. And blockchain, as we all know, is also a form of a regulatory technology. EDP, EPSI is enforcing rules, if you will, and hopefully the rules that are enforced are embedded or built upon, to be more precise, on European values. We heard Antonis talking about the tech companies from the Silicon Valley, we forgot Texas to mention, increasingly startups out of Texas, that are not necessarily built on values that might be of importance to the EU. So what we are discussing also in the context of having standards and regulation is digital sovereignty. And when we talk about digital sovereignty, then we have to define what that is. So I'm also the convener for the EU working on guidelines for blockchain ethics. So kind of because otherwise we don't know what we are embedding. But if we go back to the topic of today, blockchain governance, then I have the pleasure to discuss, this is the point of this, to talk about why governance is important and why governance in decentral or at least distributed systems is a different animal than kind of governance of more centralized organizations. And then I will give you a few insights, glimpses into what has been published last year under the technical specification 23635, Blockchain and Distributed Ledger Technologies Guidelines for Governance. So when we are looking at a distributed or a decentralized network, and this is a graph of Ethereum, this is from 2018, but when you're looking at this, what you're seeing is actually active wallets. And we like to think kind of that networks are equally distributed, or we have even a democratic system, you know, one person or one entity, one vote. But when we are looking into different slices of graphical representation of network activities, then we are seeing actually that some nodes, these are wallets, some nodes are more equal than others. Now here you could say these are users. What has that to do with governance? But let's say these are important users and they have some power, right? This is actually still the same graph. It's still Ethereum from 2018, but now something else is represented. We still look at nodes, we look at wallets. Now we're looking at the distribution of smart contracts written through those wallets. And as you can see, there is this monster node up there that is responsible for over 20% of all smart contracts written for Ethereum at that point. Now clearly you could say there are kind of only a handful, or let's say two handful of influential developer groups or developers behind those nodes, but they may have influence. They control, they steer, they direct the development of a permissionless environment such as Ethereum. And clearly that raises the question, who is running the show? How is that system organized? And what are kind of ways of governance and not just kind of control? So when we talk about governance, we do not reduce the topic to the notion of control, because what is actually important is to distinguish into, let's say, the three elements, kind of decision rights and the capability to execute decisions, accountability, and you may say, where is responsibility? Because responsibility is sort of like the little brother of accountability. Ultimately, it's about accountability. I can make you responsible, but as long as I am accountable, ultimately it's my responsibility and accountability. So accountability, and last but not least, and that is specifically of importance in distributed and decentralized networks, that is the notion and the importance of incentives, or the lack of incentives. The right to set incentive mechanisms, how, for example, validator nodes are reimbursed, how they are incentivized, is the role and the function of the governing entity that is operating, that is steering a network. Now, the governing body can be all nodes, or it can be a subgroup of those nodes. If it's a subgroup, then obviously some nodes, as I mentioned already, might be more equal than others. If let's say this one wallet in the middle that has 20% responsibility for all the smart contracts that have been written at that point, and say this is Vita Ecoterri, that person most likely is more influential than little Roman somewhere in the outer rim of this one, and obviously that raises questions about kind of formal governance, implicit governance, and the rollout of these things. Now, what we are seeing here in this little illustration is trying to depict the shift from where we are coming from, which is the lower left-hand side, and where we are pushing forward with technologies such as blockchain and DLT systems, which is the upper right-hand side, is that kind of, you see these three dimensions: incentives, accountability, and decision rights, and they are increasingly decentralized, decision rights. They are increasingly, they have a need for increasingly more aligned incentives. And that means, for example, I may have a contract, but my boss is coming around and saying, you have to work on Sunday because there's an urgent job. That is not in my incentive. He's not immediately saying you get something, but I know that he's coming back at a later point, and I may get a bonus. So you can live in human systems with an asynchronous distribution of incentives. Smart contracts and consensus mechanisms must be fulfilled immediately. The incentive mechanisms must be fulfilled in order to operate. So incentive mechanisms must be aligned and cannot be aligned. That is the notion of the vertical dimension here. And then last but not least, accountability is increasingly technically enacted. So we have our paper-based contracts on the other side, while obviously, as we all know, we also know this discussion about code is law, is code the new law, these kind of things. I'm not talking about this specifically, not I'm looking into the faces of many lawyers here in front of me. That would be suicidal to talk about that. But we all know sort of the notion is the governance is moving from the human sphere, which is on the lower left-hand side, into this other direction where it is increasingly kind of enacted by autonomous agents, smart contracts, and protocols enforcing rules. Now, that of course asks the question about what is going on and what is good governance? What is good governance? And that is a non-trivial question. And why do we need governance standards in this specific context? Now, well, and we are seeing that kind of new technologies such as blockchain are actually forcing us to think about or rethink our understanding of governance. That was the role of the previous slide. Now we are seeing kind of that we have to make sure that we can ensure trust and interoperability. I mean, standards ultimately are there to provide interoperability, not just between, in this case, blockchains, but also interoperability, kind of the different nodes and so on, is a non-trivial task. Working with blockchain and DLT to improve transparency, security, and privacy. I think this is what we all know about. This is what we was connotation when we talk about blockchains. Agreed internationally in consensus to facilitate worldwide uptake and increase the use of technology. We have already heard also this in
this conference, we can't have siloed systems with hundreds of blockchain frameworks that will create just a new confusion on a higher level of abstraction. And last but not least, kind of standards are important in that context to make your investments future-proof. If you are investing in something that is following some standard, then you can be more certain, or there's a higher likelihood that the system and the standards you're using are actually also the standards that I use tomorrow and the day after. So kind of standards are actually not limiting, that is not the purpose of standards, not limiting competition, they are increasing competition. I'm often talking about a good standard, at least, is something like safety fences when you're doing downhill skiing. Right? There's a skiing slope in the middle, and better you stay on that. But once in a while, you might get off the piste, right? And then you're happy that there is actually a fence. So this is proving, making kind of investments future-proof. So talking about the already published technical specifications, the TS 23635. For what is it good? Kind of, it provides guidance for participants, users, developers, regulators, auditors. Today we discussed in one of the sessions we had consumers, the end consumer. Kind of what kind of implication or how can we actually convey to an end consumer why he or she should care about something like governance or something like auditing. How does that actually change the world of us consumers at the long end? Who were created by valued experts, many of them here in the room today, and members of our working group with whom it wouldn't be possible. At the peak time, there were like 250 experts in the working group, collectively contributing, putting the pieces like a mosaic puzzle together to co-create, if you will, that standard. How ISO development, process rules, consensus, ballots, and we heard a bit about kind of how ISO operates. Can be quite cumbersome at times, but it's assuring a process that allows every member state and every expert to get heard and raise his or her voice. And the content and structure described, you will see in the following. What is in HT, and I will kind of show you a few things as much as I can do because you're supposed to buy that document. I will show you a few pieces, what is in the document, for example, the governance principles. And they are ordered by their importance. And you can imagine we discussed this over many months in many midnight Zoom sessions, what comes first. For example, define identifiers and entities involved. Given the criticality or kind of what is at stake, and I'm talking about investment, not stake as a service or proof of stake, you need to figure out what kind of identity do you need to secure. Is it good enough that you have a pseudonymous identity and Mickey Mouse 99 is ordering milk? Or is that kind of the credit or whatever you're taking, or the loan for your house, and then you want to know the legal status and liquidity status of the person behind. So depending on what kind of critical solution you're trying to put on a blockchain and solve it, define identifiers and define kind of identities needed, right? And as you can see, it goes on, define identifiers, enable decentralized decision-making. It's kind of something you should enable even in distributed networks where you have a more centralized governing body. What you should do at least is to try to kind of give kind of control and decision rights to the network, because otherwise it's not a DAT system, it's not a blockchain. Ensure explicit accountability, support transparency, align incentive mechanisms, and now you can see already from the model where these kind of principles are coming from, provide performance and scalability, make risk-based decisions, and address compliance obligations, ensure security, privacy, and consider interoperability requirements. It seems pretty simple and straightforward, but it took a long time to come around with these principles. And what the document is actually providing is subsequently it's explaining what is meant here in more detail. So what the document, the TS 23635 contains is framework and types of DLT systems, permission or permissionless, because it has direct implication on what kind of governance regime you can actually install or can implement. A life cycle aspect is important, different to kind of, let's say, corporate governance, where it is always the same entity, it's always kind of the same board of C-level managers that execute governance. In DLT systems, in the beginning, it might be a handful of developers. Then it is kind of released into the wild, and then you have an anonymous group of unspecific number of validators who are executing the governance. And in the very end, and we haven't really seen a lot kind of coming to the end of their life cycle, there might be a court saying you have to shut down Bitcoin. And that's going to be interesting, but let's see if we get there. So there is a specific element that the governing body is changing over time, that is actually controlling permissionless blockchain. And that is something we are usually, as I said, don't see with classic kind of definitions of governance. Different roles, kind of auditing nodes, validator nodes, you can have different roles simultaneously that need to be considered. And of course, the governance instruments, where do they reside? On ledger or off ledger? And how do they interact? Risk and privacy is discussed, and of course, briefly, interoperability. Now, in that logic, we always start with kind of the, let's say, the legal openness and then the technical openness. So we start with it permissionless or permissioned, and then this is public or private. Right? So in that logic, sort of like we have, let's say, governance regime A, kind of that is a permissionless public environment, and that has to take care of, in a highly simplified way, about this establish, operate, terminate, the life cycle of the governance. On the other side, permission public, permission private, which is significantly easier to solve because those are the hybrid governance models that have also elements of more centralized governance, and how that works, we know because we have centralized governance like the Catholic Church for 2,000 years. We know how that works. Now, as I mentioned, the life cycle, it's important to kind of distinguish which kind of governance instruments and governance roles over time kind of play a role. In the established phase, where you may have this already mentioned handful of developers, benevolent dictators who come around and say, I have a solution to make the world a better place. Then it is in the operational phase, kind of getting into the wild to validators. There might be kind of cycles, kind of forks happen where the system is actually changing over time. And as mentioned, as anything that is good, it will come to an end eventually. We haven't seen a lot of examples yet, but you have to, when you're doing the good old backwards induction, you have to think about governance from the end. How do you structurally bring something to an end if you haven't put it on the protocol from the beginning? You may have a problem afterwards. So you have to think about the whole life cycle of the system that is also mentioned in that document. My last slide, I'm trying to catch up some time here because we are a bit over time already. I mentioned governance instruments, and we see our old friends here again, accountability, decision rights and incentives and incentive mechanisms. Now the question is, of course, kind of how do you divide governance that is executed on ledger, and what kind of possibilities and features and functions can reside on the protocol and can be executed through smart contracts, and which kind of complementary instruments do you need outside the blockchain protocol off ledger. And as you can see, when it comes to accountability, just to give an example, I will not go through the whole table here. You see something that can be organized on ledger, and is part of accountability is the establishment of identification and the organization of access control and the confirmation of any kind of decisions. Auditing, very important, because we all see that there is an immutable trace of activities, of transactions. So that is something that can help you to establish accountability if something goes wrong, data conservation, authentication, and so on and so forth. So now we have a bit more concrete understanding what you have to focus on. Again, that is a standard on a high level to say, if you are planning to do something, you want to keep these things on your mind, to consider kind of what does that mean in your specific case, and how would you implement that in your solution. Now the last slide I do have, I think it's the last slide, is an advertisement slide. I shamelessly take advantage of having control of the remote. We are running a summer school in August in Copenhagen, the 6th International Blockchain Summer School on decentralized finance and regenerative finance. We are aiming for 100 PhD students coming from around the world. Kind of during COVID, or the end of COVID, we had 30-something from South Africa and from North Macedonia and from Malaysia. If you're interested, and or if you are a student, right, kind of, please, also like Marilyn, have a website, blockchainschool.eu, right, hope it's easy to remember. You also find some little video trailers from previous summer schools where you can get an idea of how that works. We do this with different industry partners, and it's a week-long also party, after school party. So it's there's for everyone. There's something. Kind of long story short, governance in decentralized systems, value creation in networks is a different animal than kind of what we are used to. Kind of organizing something in a more centralized way. That is where companies are normally operating. It's really hard to understand how to create value in decentralized systems and capture the value for yourself. We can come up with solutions and create better money, for example, Bitcoin, but how would you individually capture the value of unfolding that? We are learning more and more how that works. Therefore, we can actually adjust and adapt our understanding. And here, something supposedly John Maynard Keynes has said, he never said it, but it's put in his mouth. When my information changes, I change my mind or do it. Right? And that is kind of course, coming from the university, so that's important for us to educate and hope that there's an impact in society. There's a glitch here in the slide. Thank you very much for your attention. And when we come to this cocktail point at the end.
Thank you. Thank you, Roman. So for our last presentation, before a short break, I would like to invite Mr. Ismail Arribas, convener of Working Group 3 of ISO TC307 for his presentation for smart contracts and their applications.
Okay. Hello all. I will change everything. I will bring some spicy. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm businessman from the Kingdom of Spain, but standards change a lot of things in my life, and I listen a lot of things that happen here in the European blockchain service infrastructure, the European blockchain sandbox regulatory, and the proof of concept framework in the European Standards Telecommunication Institute. And with what I will try to show you today, I'm going very quick to the slides. I will spend hopefully 6 minutes or 7 minutes if everything works well. What you will see is that we build an infrastructure to generate tasks, different kinds of tasks, and all of these tasks. All of these tasks are based with a different kind of example. Otherwise, nobody will know where I am. Okay. Yeah. So I identified here before. I will do it very quick because I was preparing everything. And I can identify. I can generate here. Let's say here in very quick for 1 hour, because in 1 hour is going to be my last chance to give to everyone. And I will say, let's say, meta traveler. It doesn't matter because no data rotation in terms of who am I. Then I will pay $10. Sorry, $10 for a picture. So I generate, this is one of the use cases. We have 96 use cases. That's why standards is very important. The data from model and different kinds of circumstances. Well, as you see in the map, appear like a kind of room. I enter in that room. I will enter as I will allow error. As you can identify What does it mean? If I refresh the chain, it's an error, but will change. So I will enter in this point right now that we have leverage here. Hello. To enter. Sorry. And there are a couple. There are a couple of. As you can see, there are a couple of here on my phone. There are a couple of. It's a kind of toolkits to do different kind of things. For instance, there could be a recurring contract. It's a very specific and readable for human contract. So I know what I am assigning. It's a very specific kind. Here there is another particular, which is the most important. I synchronize the picture, and as you see up here right now, one hash. This hash is the first smart contract that is talking right now with an API that subscribe this hash in hyperlayer vessel by default and hyperlayer fabric at the same time. But we test in the European Telecommunication Standard Institute 11 different kind of blockchains, including Bitcoin, including Corda. I put the two strengths, thanks to Dr. Roman, who explained the different types of. And then I will verify if it is the same content that I expected to pay you. You are there or you are not there. As you can see, I selected different kind of picture. So the hash is totally different. I could verify, I could verify, sorry, and the verification here is a different file. So this is a very simple tool in an infrastructure, okay? I will go out from here and now let me go to the presentation. There is that one, the presentation. And you will understand. I don't know where is the presentation. You will understand what's very simple. You watch two hashes. You watch how to cross-check these hashes and how to verify that this hash is corresponding to a particular content, another hash corresponds to another particular content. There are over there 3 smart contracts. You don't know, but in real time, we are using a very important piece to scale up any blockchain, which is a smart contract. And during all the process, I didn't have an idea what is an standardization. I had no idea what was that. But in 2016, because we were very early adopters of blockchain in our company, really my country, the Kingdom of Spain, called me to participate into the national body. And I started to contribute and know all part of these fantastic people that meet today and all this whole of this week in the plenary. Now it's part of my family. I'm continually working with them, and in these days I was appointed, awarded twice by the International Telecommunication Union, which is the ARC, from United Nations for Standardization, in 2016 and 2019. I was appointed as vice chairman for the focus group in Metaverse, in particular the Working 2 for Metaverse applications and services. And well, I have different hats. I'm liaison officer between the 2 major technical committees in Europe, the Sense and Elect Joint Technical Committee 19 for blockchain distributed technologies, and the other committee, which is probably you need to change what you are saying here. it's nice to here, so whether we have the break and then no problem, no problem. We can talk after the break because I will just spend 5 minutes more to explain what you watch over there very easily, and it's very complex in terms of standardization. And furthermore, I am as an officer treated these two communities I was saying from Europe. The convener, the current convener of the working group 30576 307 for smart contracts and its applications. Recently, we were having a very intense discussion for different kind of projects. One of them that hopefully could be tomorrow very well received in the sense of the plenary, which is for smart contracts taxonomy and classification. And there are other two projects on the loop of the group. But I will explain after the break if you wish. And just 3 minutes, I will wrap up for the week.
So we can have 10 minutes break, then we come back for the rest of the slides of
I will spend 5 of your as I said, I am the current co-leader of the CYS for smart contracts and the applications. And a simple disclaimer, I will show my particular opinions based on my exercise with my team in different kind of standardization efforts, not only my contribution as co-leader. Well, this is something that for me is very important. There are one piece that is compliance, that it's mandatory by law, and there are other parts that is conformity, that is voluntary. But both angles allow us, and this myself, to understand how we can go to performance. Well, I will be very quick because the important of all of this is, what is this? In-chain, on-chain, off-chain was highlighted in the governance side. And this is very important because something happened inside of these validation nodes and validator nodes. This is like the intra part, right? Then other things happen on-chain, which are the different kind of services, different kind of digital products, etc. Right? Skills with the off-chain. We can do a lot of things with these three circumstances, but it's not easy to differentiate each other sometimes. So, in terms of a smart contract, these are the key differences. When you go to on-chain, you deploy, you invoke, and operate. This is what I did with the first smart contract that anchored this hash in hyperlayer version and hyperlayer fabric, as I told you before. But in the off-chain, look at the difference. You install, instantiate, and then invoke. So, in the standard, we are trying to harmonize. That's why, what are all the words for invoke? Well, this is the difference. And it's, as you can see, the process of the performance of this smart contract is different in the steps. These are what the exercise in the industrial specification group for permission distributed layer we could do publish, and anyone can go to the publications, are for free, and these recommendations, well, allow us or allow to the industry, because over there are all the telcos, moreover, in the European space. It's a very lovely place. We were talking just about myself about the headquarters over there. And if you go to the real life, when we interact, we have a very clear kind of terms and conditions. So there are a bidirectional interoperability in such obligations. That is the trivial agreements. There could be any kind of agreement, right? But when we go to objects, and the blockchain is an object, then it's necessary implement another piece to interact between them. And it could be unidirectional, that affect just one ledger, or bidirectional. That should be the cure and the challenge, because it's the pure interoperability. That's bidirectional affection of both ledgers, let's say. In terms of the relationship under the foundational smart contract, we are talking about the governance. Dr. mentioned very well and explained very well these kind of things. And which effect is able to the governance? Yes or no? It depends on how you could maintain this neutrality of the objects. This is the key factor. The objects should be under absolute neutrality. That's why it says this consensus, this kind of governance, very well explained before, and so on. And again, the interoperability is very key. In this same relationship, in the off-chain, happen a lot of things to secure. What Roman explained well, very well, is the accountability. Because responsibility, liability, accountability, which is strong of it. It depends, but accountability is at the end of the governance. And that's why that should be how to enhance a proper accountability through the off-chain. Okay? I was very quick. This presentation is for all of you, and you can see the importance of the arrows. Some arrows are unidirectional, and doesn't interoperate. This is not an interoperability like that, which is the desire. Both layers are in a pure, as I say, the ability of two or more applications of systems to exchange data and use the mutual data that they have exchanged. That is the interoperability that we pursue, right? So thank you very much. I promise 5 minutes more, but it is. And this presentation is for all of you, and I am just for any particularities you get.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I would like to invite Ms. Caroline Thomas, convener of Working Group 6 of ISO TC 307, for a presentation on blockchain and use cases.
Thank you. Well, I think within TC307 and within ISO, I've got the best job really in the world because I get to talk to about everybody else's incredible intelligence and expertise that they bring to blockchain and DLT technologies. And I have the privilege really to do it and spot what are the good use cases out there and bring them to life so we can share them with you through the ISO process and through the publications, so that you can quickly, whether you're a businessman, a compliance, a legal officer, an entrepreneur, you can quickly look under the hood of what's going on in blockchain systems and see how it really works, the on-off-chain piece, the compliance piece. And secondly, you can see if you have a business case idea, you can start looking at how other countries, how other businesses are using DLT and blockchain to bring that great idea to life. So, I have been convener, or I've been with TC307 from the start, as many of my colleagues are here. We are like a family, but I think we really have grown over the years because we are building, every time one of our standards comes out, we are building our knowledge and then sharing that as quick as we can. And also being here today in Cyprus, and I will be quick, I would not be here, none of us would be here without Christiana, a fantastic member of TC307 and WG6, and for everybody who knows her here, when she says she's going to do something, you will be haunted until you get it done. And so here we are today, so thank you. And also to do so. I will be quick because one of the great things about use cases is that when we're at plenaries around the world, we look for local use cases that can bring to life where is blockchain and DLT being used around the world. So I'm just going to go through, this is the report that came out last year in 2022. It's use cases, 22 different use cases across 4 different sectors. You'll find in the second that they really reflect many of the topic areas we're talking with EPSI and with the sandbox, but because they're international, they have a different regulatory regime, they're using different blockchains, they might be scaling bigger than some of the European use cases as well. But again, they're all providing learnings that we can refine our tech development as we go along. Okay. 22 use cases across 4 sectors: fintech, supply chains, smart energy. The reason we do provide standards together is, first of all, to summarize what those technical capabilities are. Secondly, that we are talking to governments, businesses, academia, anyone who's using technology. We're trying to get these one single use case is trying to reflect every different audience that's looking at it.
And again, I think everybody's talking about interoperability, compliance, governance. We use the use cases to really explore this in more depth. When we're looking here, again, think of what you've been seeing today with the sandbox and with EPSI, within data provenance. The key attributes of blockchain is to be able to make sure that that fruit did come from Cyprus and hasn't been transferred from somebody else on the supply chain. We have a Cyprus use case that is now public in a technical report on ISO by Christiana again, looking at self-sovereign identity, which is one of those core areas of where blockchain systems are looking. We were also seeing within EPSI, there's quite a few use cases on education certification and online learning. We have one from the Singapore government. They have a central government blockchain, a bit like EPSI, that are doing certification of student certificates, and then they're also doing it in supply chains with bill of lading. And when we're talking about bill of lading and getting through customs throughout the world, we also have an Israeli example of that. We also have, when we were putting the different use cases together that we have sourced around the world, we had the use case developers talking to each other, going, hang on, we're doing that in Singapore, but we're doing it this way. Our on and off chain systems are working this way, whereas in Israel, they were working in a completely different way. With pharmaceutical fraud, we have China, and some of the members here are part of that China team, that we're doing pharmaceutical fraud in a completely different way to what we were doing in India, which is, again, we have picked up 4 use cases from the last plenary we had in India in 2019. And we are looking, every time that we're doing a plenary, we are really calling out that if you have a use case, come and talk to us. And if you want to get really involved in trying to create the future with technology in a safe and compliant way, come and join the family. It's an amazing family to be part of, but it's very, very active. Under the hood, my background is in innovation with large payment and banking and credit card companies. And my role was often spotting the SMEs that the banks want to invest in and turn into unicorns. We've had a few unicorns go through. If we had had these diagrams and Dr. Women's governance diagrams 5-7 years ago, it would have made life much more easier. Here you have the, is Jeff still here? Jeff, your work within WG1 to create a reference architecture as well as vocabulary and terminology and taxonomy, which means that everything coming out of TC307 is consistent. If you are buying this report or any of the other reports, you can adopt all these systems into your own technical strategy. And if you are doing that, imagine how quicker you could be scaling up, or you could be testing and really challenging what you're doing within the systems. Within data flows, again, Ismail, you were talking about on and off chain. We have another report coming out probably in the next couple of months that is all about data flows within DLT and blockchain. And it really is, you can see a very simple flow diagram on the top right-hand corner. These ones are huge, and they include use cases in the metaverse, particularly yours, on international trade. And then there's also one on agricultural provenance, particularly fish farms. How do you know that the data coming from those IoT machines are what they say they are? And that leads into a whole green debate then of some of the other work that's going on. So within this particular report and the other reports that are coming out of 307, we really have been working to provide very authenticated but very well rehearsed platforms, infrastructure and architecture, governance guidelines. All of these things are really there to help you get to market quicker, create standardization within your own businesses and companies. And also for international expansion, it makes it a lot easier if we have these capabilities to start with. A quick one, again, with ISO, everything is related to you can't get a report out the door unless you're related to SDGs. So again, if you're in the business of ticking which box you're in SDGs, have a look at what's going on here. And then again, the evolution of blockchains, we're already in a metaverse world. But when we started 4 years ago now, there was only Ethereum, there was only Hyperledger. Now we have, when we look at China, enormous consortiums of different blockchain systems. India are creating their own consortiums. So again, we are constantly evolving and we are looking for new use cases that we can help research and create standards for the future, but also encouraging you to get involved and understand what we're doing already, because it's all on a plate for you, which is a great thing to do in your business and if you're trying to get market advantage. So that's me. There's a couple of links there. You can see the website for TC307. You can see all the publications that many of us have been talking about today. If you want to join us, you can go through your national body, CYS. And there's my details there. Again, if you have use cases, we will be collecting them in the next 3 months. So contact us and we can go from there. As I mentioned, one of the real fascinating things we can do in the role that I have here is introduce and celebrate some local use cases. And I've lost George. There we are. George. Use case that's one that we haven't even seen before. So
Yes,
that's
that's the first time I'm going to see.
Yes. I'll hand that to you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is George. I am the boring guy that usually everybody would like to avoid. Because I am the safety officer. That's why. So I'm going to talk about you, about what is personal health and safety. But actually, I'm going to present you a solution which is able to support personal health and safety. The project is called Decent HNS, Decent Personal Health and Safety. And probably a question is, why decent? First of all, because according to the International Labour Organization, the ILO, health and safety at work is a fundamental human right. And decent work cannot be anything else but safe work. That's the first part. Secondly, we are using the blockchain technology. And decentralization is something that is fundamental for blockchain. So that is why decent, because we care about safe work and we are using blockchain. It was mentioned that we should focus on accomplishing the 17 SDGs. The 8th, another 8th, it is related to decent work, as I say. So what we are trying to do actually is to support the accomplishment of the SDGs globally. Believe me, occupational health and safety is not something. It's not something easy. Basically, because it has to do with the mentality of the people, the culture that everyone carries, and that's the first part. Secondly, because there are too many stakeholders that are related to the process of health and safety. Consider authorities, employees, employers, sometimes everyone. Also, one other critical part is the complexity of the businesses that are taking place all around the world. And of course, the huge amount of data that is created on a daily basis and is related to the occupational health and safety. And finally, a question that is always on the table, how we are going to prove the conformity and how we are going to prove that we have complied with the rules, the standards, the legislation, etc. So, the problem in details, of course, I'm not going to stay a lot on this slide, but it is easy for you to understand. It is that there are too many things that we need to handle on our daily basis, dealing with occupational health and safety. So we have the problem in front of us, and we have to see how we are going to solve it. Because as I told you, my profession is on the field of occupational health and safety. I'm not an IT scientist or nothing to do with legal scientists and things like that. So I have to find a solution to solve my problem first. The idea is quite simple. Let's use the new digital technology, of course, the blockchains, in order to support the management of occupational health and safety. And through that, we are going to support as well the implementation of the human right for health and safety at work, and finally to contribute possibly to the achievement of the global goals. So what we have done, we have created a digital ecosystem using the blockchain technology, and all the members that are participating in this ecosystem will be able to manage the issues related to health and safety, of course, to improve their performance in this field, to prove their compliance, and finally to contribute to the solution of to the implementation of the SDGs. The DSNS actually it is an online platform which is able to support any industry, no matter the sector, no matter the size of the industry, no matter of the location all around the world. Why we decided to use blockchain? I think that you are much more familiar than me on this field. Of course, trust, transparency, immutability, all these things that are critical for someone who is involved on occupational health and safety and needs to prove that the job is correctly and properly done. How does it work? It's quite simple. So the DSNS has developed the backbone of our digital ecosystem. And based on this backbone, we are able to create applications and digital tools in order to serve the safety activities. And due to the fact that the blockchain itself, and of course the DSNS, are able to adapt and customize, we are able to support and create the tools that really do fit to the needs of the client, of the customers. Generally, the implementation path is quite simple. First of all, a portfolio of assets is created. The assets could be anything, could be legal entities, could be equipment, could be individuals, could be documents, could be anything. We decide the control points on each asset, and whenever a health and safety action related to these assets take place, then directly it is a digital ID is provided to this action, then it is encrypted and it is filed at the public blockchain of VeChain. So what are we finally we are able to do with this? Actually, we are able to support health and safety in two different ways. First of all, we are able to support all these people who is involved in the management of health and safety on a daily basis. And secondly, let's say this is a much more generic function. We are able, through the accountability and reliability and all these functions, we are able to support, to develop day by day a positive safety culture within the entities. So we are talking about a digital ecosystem. That's the idea, where personal commitment could be transformed into value for everyone, no matter where it is. Let's see it with an example based on the ISO. The ISO 5000, it is related to the management of health and safety. A lot of stakeholders are involved. And all these have the same target to promote occupational health and safety, which means to support each one who is executing working task to, let's say, to return home safely. And by that, we are supporting the human right of health and safety at work, as I said previously. Finally, support the accomplishment of sustainable development goals. So, actually, there is already out there an ecosystem. It is all the companies or the organizations that are already certified and following the ISO 45001, and we are able, through the DIS and HNS, to transform this existing ecosystem to a digital ecosystem where all the members are going to have privileges as any member to a club has. The DIS and SNS Consultancy Limited is based in Nicosia, Cyprus, and is formed by three companies, the blockchain, KCC, and the Red Mallet. At this moment, the project is at the last phase. This is our version, the contact details. At this phase, the project is at the last phase of the development, and by scanning this QR code, you will be able to see a short video on the YouTube with the project and how it works for the moment. That's all for me. I don't know if there are any questions. I will be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next speaker is Mr. Michael Lambastis from KPMG, and he will present towards a decentralized society and the role of the ecosystem.
So good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, a huge thanks to all the parties involved that helped to bring this event today. So today, I just want to talk briefly to you about moving towards a decentralized society and the role of the ecosystem towards this movement. Firstly, we'll start very briefly with the basics about what is Web3 and the metaverse. Then move on to some trends and consideration. And lastly, consider the role of the ecosystem, including the government and the various businesses. So currently we are on Web 2, which is, let's say, the current version of the web or the internet. Whereas Web 3 is considered the next version. It's going to be more open, centralized, and operator utility. Here on the screen, we can see the difference between Web 2 and Web 3 in four, let's say, main pillars. Starting firstly from transactions. Whereas currently, most payments performed are done with cryptocurrencies, but in Web 3, cryptocurrencies will be much more widely used. Now, the network on the internet owns data, which is a huge contrast to the future, let's say, where user entities in Web3 will have ownership over the data. They'll be able to choose with whom to share and what is done in the data. The current websites include, currently some applications we can see on Web2 is simple websites, podcasts, and blogs, whereas Web3 will incorporate virtual worlds and developers, as well as AI and ML-powered centralized applications. Common technologies at the moment are HTML5 and JavaScript, whereas Web3 will be powered by the blockchain, Gig, and machine learning. Moving on to some Web3 breakthroughs in a nutshell, is first of all is decentralization. So information is going to be stored on multiple locations at the same time and become centralized. As we mentioned earlier, users will be able to maintain control of their data that is produced by their phones, other sensors, maybe their computer as well, and have a say on what is done with their data. Web3 is going to be trustless, meaning the network users will be able to communicate with each other and interact with each other without needing a trusted intermediary. And permissionless, which means that anyone will be able to participate in authorization from a main government body, let's say. Information is going to be much more connected and accessed by numerous applications, with the ever-increasing number of devices now connected to the web. And artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to play a much more bigger role in Web3. It's going to really help to increase its accuracy. So we've heard this word a lot today. So simply, what is the metaverse? Basically, it's a concept of a persistent 3D online universe that brings together many different virtual spaces and worlds, we can say. There, our physical lives and our digital selves will intersect. The real people will be able to have real interactions by their avatars with other people. There, digital assets, goods, and services will be sold and traded. So, people that use the metaverse, that log into the metaverse, will be able to work, meet, and socialize with each other in these 3D worlds by the hosting of various events, both for leisure and for work. The metaverse will allow for a digital economy by employing different kinds of utility tokens, as well as virtual collectibles or NFTs. It is very important to note that they're evolving blockchain technology to be able to provide transparent, reliable governance mechanisms, as other people mentioned for me today. Moving on to trends, opportunities, and considerations, maybe first we could see a couple of numbers. So the target market for the metaverse economy is estimated to overcome $8 trillion by 2030. At least 70% of the brands we all know and love will have some kind of presence in the metaverse in the next few years. And on the far right, we can see that the media, entertainment, and public sector are estimated to be the highest adopters of the metaverse. These will also bring many new use cases and monetization ideas. For example, the opening of virtual art galleries, where anybody can visit from their own home. Maybe attending concerts with your friends and seeing your favorite artists live in this virtual space. Maybe sit down in a classroom and obtain your education in a virtual classroom in that way, by university, or maybe have some training at work. And maybe travel to the destination of your liking from the comfort of your own home. Other use cases and monetization ideas is, of course, e-commerce, and even the buying and selling of virtual real estate. So if we take a very simple example of how the metaverse can provide such a fun and engaging experience, let's take something simple like shopping, for example. So not only will you be able to virtually walk in the store of your choice, and see the products or the clothes you like. You could even actually see them, how they look, how they would look in the real world, how they fit you. And you won't be able to just walk around the store in silence. At the same time, you'll be able to talk to other people in the store or even the store associates in real time. So you have a complete and true shopping experience. So what if the metaverse is actually widely adopted? Maybe we can break it down to three smaller questions. Firstly, what if gaming could actually earn you some money? What if the traditional financial players actually take metaverse for serious? And what if virtual reality actually becomes widely adopted? Starting with the first, gamification. We can see some trends of people shifting to play to earn. So actually, by actually playing some various types of games in metaverse, they can actually earn some cryptocurrency. And we can already see some big brands attracting new customers this way with gaming. So we can observe that many more people now experience for the first time decentralized ownership and custody of the cryptocurrency. But we will not forget there's some regulatory, financial, and maybe tax considerations on the assets and wealth generated via play to earn. Moving on to traditional finance. Again, here, big players are already joining the crypto and metaverse game, we can say. For example, Visa's crypto cards made over 2.5 billion payments just in the first quarter of last year. PayPal has enabled crypto wallets for millions of its users. And even JP Morgan has opened its first virtual, let's say, store or lounge in the metaverse. So we can observe a huge increase in people that actually now use crypto, enter the metaverse to buy and sell real-life goods and services. One of the biggest considerations still is cybersecurity, since there are still observed some major thefts of crypto recently. Lastly, about the wide adoption of virtual reality, we can see that for this year, a huge number of about 70 million of augmented and virtual reality machines are expected to be sold and shipped. And we'll observe that many more people will be able to work, play, and be entertained in the metaverse in a very interactive way. And this leads to the final consideration that maybe if people can do all that from the comfort of their home, work, play, maybe there's going to be a radical decrease in the number of physical or brick-and-mortar shops that are going to be needed. Lastly, moving to the role of the ecosystem. In the decentralized world, there are various regulatory, societal, and economic aspects that need to be taken into consideration. Starting with the government as one of the most important parts of the ecosystem, it can act as a gate opener for various opportunities that lie ahead. And it can do it, for example, by incentivizing the adoption of new technologies by both new businesses and the wider public. Additionally, it can help them in pushing forward in the revision of existing laws, or even maybe fast forward in the drafting of new regulation to encompass these new technologies. And then we move on to the businesses that they can do many actions as well to help in this movement. For example, starting to embrace digital transformation, being more open to exploring new opportunities, new technologies, and new monetization ideas, and of course investing in their own people and educating about these new technologies, how they work, and what can be done with them. As a closing statement, I'd like to say that, of course, with any new technology, of course, regulation is needed. I believe that it should be done in a way that is not going to stifle any type of innovation or entrepreneurship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. So next, Ms. Selena Hadjiyaku from Eastern Young, who will present us use cases driving the future.
afternoon, everyone. My name is Elena Kuchkiriakou, and it is a great pleasure to be with you today. I'm a director of business consulting in MTN Cyprus and also a blockchain enthusiast. I'm also a university candidate in the blockchain digital currencies program at the University of Nicosia. I just completed my first year and all the mandatory courses. So it's an even bigger pleasure to be here presenting to you today at the university's process. Although I'm rather new to the field, I'm very lucky to work with a firm such as CYS, which is an innovator with great experience in the area. And today I will give you a short background on some of EY's work, as well as a flavor of some of the projects that my colleagues have delivered. The intention is for us to see the breadth of use cases for blockchain technology and how, in my view, as well as many others' view, it's driving the future. EY has been active in blockchain work for many years, and there are currently over 20 centers of excellence established in the firm. These worldwide teams work in an integrated manner around product delivery. There are more than 500 people in our global blockchain network, including cryptographers, mathematicians, developers, and architects who work with business consulting teams in various sectors and countries. We have delivered more than 60 patents by now, and most of the work is open source and can be found on public domains such as github.com/EY-blockchain. We are also considered credible and with well-defined engagement model by external analysts. Now, there are many projects that have been delivered so far, and there's a growing number of ongoing work as well, which broadens the areas covered. Here, I will mention a few of the projects delivered, just to give you an overview. While in the next slides, I will discuss 3 use cases and go further. One milestone project was with Microsoft related to digital rights and loyalties management through the use of blockchain technology. Here, smart contract functionality was used to instantly calculate royalties while the information was distributed across the partner network in a secure and immutable manner. Another interesting project was a collaboration with a pharmaceutical firm for a blockchain solution to track animal vaccines. There, they used blockchain solution to track animal vaccines all the way along the supply chain, from the company to the distributor, the shipper, and the end customers in a specific destination country. Also, an Australian startup built, with the help of EY, a resource sharing platform for the automotive industry. There, a blockchain-based peer-to-peer marketplace was created that allows car owners to post repair requests, and local car workshops can be forwarded. Also, through the marketplace, car workshops can book and rent resources from each other. There is also one project where an e-commerce and traceability platform for trading wine was built with the help of EY. This platform is used to promote and sell wines worldwide, which is the first, using tokens to buy and sell wine, to track shipments, to monitor warehousing and delivery, and even to arrange and track insurance coverage of wine shipments. Blockchain technology has also been used to make blood donations more effective. EY has been working with the Canadian Blood Services in order to provide near real-time visibility and traceability of blood products from donor to patient, with location and status registered on a single unified platform. One last one that I will mention is the use of blockchain technology in order to support publishing and journalism with traceability of news. This solution takes advantage of the blockchain technology features such as immutability, transparency, and security to allow readers to check the reliability of the news. So you get the idea on the kinds of projects that we have been working on so far. Let's now have a quick look on a bit more, particularly in 3 distinct use cases, which I'm hoping you will find interesting. And of course, we show the value of blockchain in creating new frontiers and driving the future. So in this first use case, an earlier version of Contract Manager, which is a blockchain-based product in UI, was built for Microsoft, and it's still in use in Microsoft. It was built on a private blockchain, and it validated the value proposition of automating business transactions using smart contracts. In this case, they took probably more than 3,000 video game contracts and turned them into smart contracts, and the results were remarkable. Cycle time to calculate the monthly bill went from 45 days to less than 4 minutes. That's 99.999% cycle time improvement. Excuse me. There was also good news on costs. Even after the cost of implementing and creating the smart contracts and deploying them, the process cost 40% less than what the original process cost. And finally, there was much higher user satisfaction with far less disputes. This was pioneered with a private blockchain that validated the value proposition. In this case, there was no privacy in the network, so this was not scalable, neither open to all, but it was, however, a great achievement in the processes inside the company. And it can be offered now to users on the public blockchain under privacy, which is a step forward. Moving on, in this second use case, EY partnered with a leading Italian university with the objective of creating unique, immutable, and easily shareable notarized diplomas. We've heard a little bit about this before as well. As you know, verifying a university degree is now a rather complex process. It's done manually, it is time-consuming, and even when presented with a paper title, it doesn't always guarantee the authenticity of the degree. In this case, EY supported the university in using blockchain technology in order to create unique, immutable, and easily shareable notarized diplomas. This was done using the EY Chain Standardization and Coorganization module, and the team achieved the generation of digital certificates in blockchains, which can be shared with third parties, and overcoming the authenticity challenge. We actually see this happening in many places, with more and more educational institutions issuing their degrees and certificates with blockchain technology. In fact, when I graduated from Munich, I will receive my degree in this manner as well, and its authenticity will be able to be tested. And finally, the third use case is a use case relating to beer. The objective here was to be able to provide consumers to prove to consumers that the Italian beer they were drinking was produced with 100% Italian malt. In this case, blockchain technology was used, and in particular, EY Chain Manager, in order to utilize blockchain traceability. This allowed us to collect and structure the most relevant information in the process of the production of beer. Information from cultivation, malting, brewing, packaging, and distribution was collected and recorded, and through the Ethereum blockchain, it was made available to the consumers through a QR code on the labels of the beer bottles. This meant that consumers had full access to guaranteed information and could confirm the 100% Italian malt in their drink. I will conclude with a quote from EY's global blockchain leader, who believes that using blockchain, we can do across enterprise boundaries what we used to be able to do only inside the enterprise. Currently, we are digital already in many areas. However, we are digital in small silos. We've heard this before today as well, but don't communicate very smoothly. The data moves in a fragmented way between the silos, sometimes by fax, sometimes by email, sometimes even by scanned PDF forms that are then being pushed into the next system. But if we tokenize things, then we could move the token across a chain. And if we use smart contracts, then we could alter the rules of how these movements take place as well. With all these developments, we expect to be seeing blockchains getting everyone on the same page, and with the same data across an ecosystem of businesses that collaborate, which is a large ambition, but I also believe in this vision, and I'm convinced that sooner or later, In these and in many other ways, blockchain will drive the future. Here I'd like to wrap up and thank you once again for your attention.
Thank you, Serena. So our last presentation for today's seminar, I call Mr. Alexandros Konstantinou, Director of Compliance Service MAP Expertise, and we present transitioning from the current crypto asset service providers framework to
So, last presentation, all right. I'm sure everyone will be able to go to the cocktail. So I'll try not to bore you too much. I'll focus today on basically provide in this short-term presentation where we stand today and with respect to the legal framework surrounding crypto assets and the crypto industry in Europe in particular, and a bit the Cyprus paradigm, and how we move into MiCA. I think it's a monumental moment that we are at today, because last week, as you may have heard from also Christiana in her excellent presentation, that MiCA has officially been published in the European Union Journal. And I think it's a monumental moment for those service providers who have been expecting to be regulated for so many years. And why was that? Why did they want to be regulated? I mean, who wants regulation? Who wants rules? I mean, I think this is important for them, not for the whole industry, but at least for some providers, especially the crypto exchanges, because it legitimizes their offering. It legitimizes what they do. Okay, and it also, the expectation at least, is that they will be able to now interact much better with traditional finance, which they have been blocked, at least at some extent, from it. Due to the, risks surrounding crypto assets, and you all have heard, I mean, the stories about who uses the criminals and the money laundering around it. There might be a slight overlap with what Christina has presented earlier. I'll try to minimize that, but I think we provide some context to my point of the presentation. So what we had, the crypto industry was highly regulated, okay, for many, many years. The EU has tried to semi-regulate it recently with AML DeFi by at least providing some rules with respect to making sure that players in this industry are regulated for AML purposes and avoiding at least minimizing the potential use of cryptos into conducting AML. Some member states, like Malta, for example, adopted bespoke national rules and created their own framework, but then that was contained in their own jurisdiction only. There hasn't been an EU-wide passporting, which passporting means that you are able to offer your services legally across the EU. The market has had no level playing field in terms of regulation, has been quite fragmented and inconsistent with significant divergence across jurisdictions in Europe. So in Cyprus, we have adopted the requirements of the European Anti-Money Laundering Directive. We have, if you are operating in Cyprus and provide a service in relation to crypto assets, you have to obtain some sort of registration from the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission, which is not a full authorization per se, it's a quasi-license, I would say. Our rules this year in Cyprus have gone a bit beyond what the Money Laundering Directive, the EU Money Laundering Directive has been requiring, so we cover a variety of crypto asset services. services. And it's also important to know that traditional financial institutions, such as banks and investment firms, investment banks, are not at the moment allowed to offer crypto asset-related services attached to their current legislation. The regulators wanted to separate the two. They didn't want a spillover from one activity to the other. They prefer that this is kept separate. And I'm mentioning this on purpose because with MiCA, this will be possible for them. So as we said, if you are somebody, an organization that offers specific services on crypto assets, so if you are an exchange, let's say, crypto exchange, or you are involved, you are a crypto wallet arranging transfer of crypto assets to another wallet, and you are set up in Cyprus or offer the services from Cyprus, you have to be registered at the moment and being regulated for email. But how do we transition or from this environment, which is a bit fragmented, we said, across the EU, into a new environment which MiCA brings in, for all players, which is the same across the EU, and what happens with those that are not regulated at the moment, and they are captured with MiCA, and moving into a quite unregulated industry into a heavily regulated industry now with MiCA, because MiCA introduced quite significant rules. So these are questions that need to be answered, especially if you are falling within the scope of MiCA, and that will be quite significant part of this industry that will fall into it. Even if you are from outside Europe and offer your services in Europe, you might be captured and affected by it. So MiCA, I will not go into detail into MiCA, but I will highlight some important things in respect to the context of my presentation. So MiCA applies to persons that are engaged in the issuance, offer to the public an admission to trading of crypto assets, or provide services relating to crypto assets. So if you are now want to issue, you are an organization that wants to issue a stablecoin, let's say you are captured by MiCA. If you are an issuer of a crypto asset and you want to list it on Binance crypto exchange, let's say, for trading, you are now captured with MiCA. If you are Binance offering crypto exchanges, so folks, so Binance is just the first one that comes on my mind with marketing. So you have to have you fall under MiCA. Now, when it comes into force, that was also mentioned by Christiana, I will not repeat that. It's important that MiCA takes the form of a regulation. Consequently, there will be no national transposing measures. So you don't. Every EU country doesn't need to vote this into their national law. It doesn't need to pass parliament. It's already there. Regulation. They are forced by the European legal framework to apply it. Okay. Although MiCA is an official text at the moment, there is a lot of work still to be done. Okay, this is not the end. Okay, even people start discuss about MiCA too. But anyway, the issue is that a lot of level 2 regulatory technical standards will be issued in the next coming months that will help address some of the ambiguities or general principles in MiCA. So what is crypto asset under MiCA? So it's a very broad definition, as you can see, any digital representation of value or rights which may be transferred and stored electronically using distributed ledger technology or similar technology. It's important to know that MiCA doesn't regulate the technology itself. It regulates the byproduct, the end result for the user, okay, the offering, the service that is provided to the user. It doesn't regulate what type of DLT, let's say, technology will be used or anything like that. It just regulates the service and services that basically are affected by in the financial world. Okay, we also saw previously that MiCA differentiates between 3 types of groups of crypto assets: the asset reference tokens, e-money tokens, and the other type of crypto assets. Basically, asset reference token, e-money tokens, that the so-called stable coins that you might have heard. E-money tokens, important to mention that only e-money institutions and credit institutions, meaning banks, are able to issue. Okay. So MiCA provides rules for different set of rules for this type of, for all these separate rules for each type of these three categories of crypto assets. Okay, and it also provides rules if you are a service provider. So if you are the crypto asset service provider, the so-called CAS, so it provides 10 types of services that such an organization can offer. For example, exchange of cryptos with cryptos, or cryptos with fiat currency, or transferring one crypto asset on behalf of a client to somebody else. Portfolio management, these are, if you know MiFID, the main legal framework for financial, for investment services in Europe, these are similar services with MiFID. So as we said, MiCA provides a framework for the issuance, offering, or listing of crypto assets. There's a separate set of rules for each three categories of crypto assets that we saw, and there is also rules for those that are service providers who are not necessarily issuers but have clients who they serve them for in one of these 10 services listed there. It's important to know that if you are already a traditional financial institution licensed, right, in Europe, you are able to offer crypto asset services that are mentioned in your authorization and supported by MiCA without needing to go through a complex authorization process, as opposed to a normal company that is not a traditional institution at the moment, and you are able to use your existing license to offer your asset services. There will be a notification process and a small approval process in this respect. It is expected. But I think the most important thing is that now you are able to set up in one particular country in Europe, and you are able to and have permission under MiCA from the national competent authority of that country, and you are able to now, you will be able to offer your services across the EU, either remotely, through the internet, or phone, or any other digital means, or by setting up even in another member state, for example, through a branch. So MiCA also provides some grandfathering and transitional phasing in and phasing out of the current situation across the EU by providing some provisions and measures, transitional provisions and measures. So if you are, let's say, if you are an issuer of a crypto asset, except the asset reference token and e-money tokens, and you have and your offer ends by the 30th of December next year, you do not need to apply the rules prescribed in MiCA for such type of offer. If you are, if a crypto asset except asset reference token and AMTs is admitted to trading before the 30th of December next year, some of the rules that should apply to you don't apply, and only a limited numbers of rules will be applying for you. So it kind of provides some exceptions for issuance or crypto assets that are being in circulation before the end of next year, that are issued before the end of next year. Issuance of acts other than a bank that has issued an act through national legislation before the 30th of June 2024 next year may continue to do so until they are granted or refused an authorization, provided they apply as such by that, but before the 30th of July 2024. And if you are an already registered crypto asset service provider in any European country, for example, Cyprus or Estonia or France, who already registered such companies, and you are able to, and you have been registered with any of the national authorities before the 30th of December next year, you may continue to provide your services without being explicitly authorized under MiCA until the 1st of July 2026, or until you are granted or refused an authorization, whichever comes sooner. There's a national discretion here. Some member states may decide if they want not to apply this transition regime or reduce its duration if they see it necessary. So now, if you are currently a crypto asset provider operating in Europe, have obtained some sort of registration, obviously you need to start preparing yourself to make sure that you are going to apply to the national authority. You need to decide whether you will remain in that jurisdiction, setting up elsewhere. These are important questions. If you are an existing cash provider, you are also benefiting from a possibly simplified authorization procedure after an 18-month period. But if you consider the limited rules that really exist now for such provider and where we are going to with MiCA, which is a very prescribed and detailed rules because they have copied basically the rules of the existing frameworks applicable to traditional financial institutions and replicated them essentially with some tweakings to fit the crypto asset providers. You should prepare yourself for these changes that are coming, because once you are authorized, you need to be compliant from day one, right? So it's important to study them, start preparing, perform your gap analysis, etc. Now, if you are not a registered or you don't issue crypto assets and circulate them in Europe, or you plan to do so in the future, or you perform some type of activity in Europe anyway in crypto that doesn't require registration, you are thinking to be registered soon because you have a business idea that you want to perform. You need to make sure that you understand whether you are captured by the regulation and plan ahead, obviously, for the relevant applications and making sure that you comply. It's important to also know that MiCA also provides for the possibility of a third country crypto asset service provider to serve EU clients under the premise of reverse solicitation. Okay, if the client, an EU-based client, is on its own initiative approaching a firm outside Europe to obtain services, it will be possible and legally for them to serve that client. But if that third country firm now starts marketing and promoting within Europe from abroad, then it will be captured by the legislation and we have to be licensed. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I would like to thank all of the speakers for their very interesting and informative presentations. At this point, we will proceed with question and answer, as we promised. So, any questions? Find the microphones. Questions are pointed to? Hello? Yes.
I was wondering with MiCA coming up, let's take the example of Bitcoin. So I have a pyramid of questions. So would MiCA apply to Bitcoin? If yes, who would the service provider be? The miners? And anybody feels?
Very easy for me, but the experts are over there.
So I think it doesn't apply to Bitcoin itself, right? I mean, but it will apply to anyone that is performing, is using Bitcoin, for example, if you are an exchange that converts Bitcoin to fiat currency, right? Or exchanging Bitcoin to Tether, let's say. So if you are doing such an activity within Europe, then you will have to be regulated under MiCA. But Bitcoin itself, it's not as regulated. It's indirectly.
The answer,
I think I,
the answer is that it does not apply to protocols. So it doesn't capture protocols. So Bitcoin is a protocol.
I think maybe I can offer an answer. I think it's like asking if regulation laws and standards apply to earthquakes. And the answer is earthquakes don't ask legal systems whether they should happen or not. But we can deal with the buildings not collapsing, with all related stuff around it of the legal response and industry response. So if you're talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, all this stuff, things that happen, they don't ask legal systems. We are talking about our reaction to that.
It's cool that you provide the similarity to earthquake, but in fact, an earthquake is an act of God or whoever is called God. It's different, to Bitcoin or any protocol, but okay, it's a cool attempt to provide a similarity. Okay, I will agree.
So it seems, well, I don't know. Well, so it seems I'm very loud, and there's not remote. So it seems that we're making certain assumptions about the world through these regulations. So I have two questions based upon these assumptions. Question number one is this primarily geared towards the assumption that the issuance of tokens is effectively a kind of a finance operation, and that when we talk about regulating token issuance, we're really talking about regulating crypto finance? That's question number one. Question number two is the processing of transactions. We're assuming that the process, I think, that the processing of transactions follows a model that has evolved for cryptocurrencies that tend to trade sort of like Bitcoin or Ethereum, a UTXO or a state transition-based system, wherein the ledger participants, the DLT nodes, using our terminology, are actually involved in the processing of transactions, and they're effectively playing a role. But if we were to use a distributed ledger in a different way to process transactions, and rather than actually involve the nodes in the transaction processing and the managing of tokens or values, if we were to instead just use it to reference the history of transactions by rolling up perhaps Merkle accumulated transactions, and there are several different architectures that allow this that have emerged in the past 2 or so years. If we were to do that, and the DLT nodes had no knowledge of assets or tokens whatsoever, and were just being unidirectional publishers instead, would that model involve, how would that model apply to the operators of the transaction network, contra the operators of the operations of issuing tokens, which, by the